Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the Shadow Dragon Ranger, the Sage of Dino T. Hunter Naruto x Kira Ford x Elsa, Power Rangers Dino Thunder. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Dragon from Another World. The dimensional tear manifested with neither warning nor mercy, splitting the afternoon sky above Reefside Park like an angry wound. Elector. Icy blue energy crackled along its jagged edges, distorting the air with rippling heat waves that bent light and reality alike. Citizens scattered, screaming as the anomaly pulsed with increasing intensity, drowning out even the wailing of distant emergency sirens. Naruto Uzumaki had experienced the violent turbulence of space-time ninjutsu before. Kakashi's Kamui, Obito's dimensional abilities, EV. Nkagaya's rifts between worlds, but nothing had prepared him for this. His body spun through a kaleidoscopic void, chakra networks burning as if filled with molten metal rather than energy. Every molecule of his being seemed to disintegrate and reassemble thousands of times per second. What the hell is happening? He gasped, the words torn from his lungs and scattered across dimensions. The key thing he remembered was investigating strange energy fluctuations near the rebuilt Hokage monument with Sakura and Shikamaru. Then came the pulse, that massive surge of unfamiliar chakra that didn't belong in their world, followed by this. The vortex constricted suddenly, compressing around him like a collapsing star before violently expelling him into brilliant daylight. Naruto crashed through the canopy of an oak tree, instinctively channeling chakra to his limbs to absorb the impact. Branches snapped beneath him as he tumbled, finally landing in a controlled crouch that cracked the concrete walkway beneath his feet. For several heartbeats, he remained perfectly still, senses expanding outward to assess his surroundings. This wasn't Konoha. The air tasted different, heavy with unfamiliar pollutants and absent the specific pollen mixture of fire country forests. Strange mechanical sounds filled his ears. Rumbling engines, electronic beeps, and distant music unlike any he'd heard before. Either I've been thrown halfway across the elemental nations, he muttered, rising slowly while scanning the horizon, or this is something much worse. The park around him appeared mundane enough. Grass, trees, walking paths, benches, but beyond its boundaries rose structures that made even the modern architecture of post-war Konoha seem primitive. Glass and steel towers stretched toward the clouds. Vehicles without visible means of propulsion moved along organized pathways, and overhead, metal machines roared through the sky without flapping wings. A woman nearby screamed, pointing at him while clutching her child. It's another one. Another monster. Naruto glanced down at himself, confused. His standard shinobi gear, black and orange jacket, reinforced pants, weapons pouches, looked perfectly normal to him. If somewhat singed from the dimensional transit. It took him a moment to realize that his dramatic arrival, not his appearance, had triggered the panic. I'm not, he began, but was cut off by renewed screams as people fled in all directions. Distant explosions suddenly rocked the far side of the park, followed by plumes of smoke and more panicked shouting. Naruto's instincts kicked in immediately. Whatever strange place he'd landed in, civilians in danger remained a constant he understood perfectly. He leapt upward, chakra propelling him 30 feet into the air for a better vantage point. The scene unfolding across the park defied even his battle-hardened expectations. 4 figures in color-coded suits, red, blue, yellow, and black, fought against what could only be described as a nightmarish fusion of dinosaur and machine. The creature stood 9 feet tall with mechanized limbs, armor plating across its reptilian hide, and a head resembling a tyrannosaur. As with glowing red optical sensors instead of eyes. What kind of summoning jutsu is that? Naruto whispered, eyes narrowing as he analyzed the battle. The suited fighters moved with impressive coordination, wielding weapons that channeled some form of energy he couldn't immediately identify. Not chakra, something different but equally potent. The dinosaur creature countered with surprising agility, firing energy blasts from shoulder-mounted cannons that scorched the earth wherever they struck. Connor, look out, the yellow-suited fighter called, a woman's voice, as she executed a perfect backflip to avoid a tail strike. The red fighter, Connor, apparently, dodged sideways but stumbled on uneven ground. The dinosaur creature capitalized immediately, unleashing a concentrated energy beam directly at the vulnerable fighter. Naruto moved without conscious thought. His hands formed familiar seals, and 3 shadow clones materialized beside him, already leaping toward the battlefield. Original Naruto snatched a young child from the monster's path, depositing her safely behind a stone monument 50 yards away. His clones simultaneously intercepted civilians in the danger zone, moving them to safety with precision born from years of combat experience. "Stay here," he instructed the wide-eyed girl, who nodded mutely as he turned back toward the battle. The red fighter had narrowly avoided destruction, rolling beneath the energy beam that instead struck a fountain, shattering concrete and sending water geysering into the air. The black-suited fighter, seemingly older and more experienced than the others, executed a series of strikes against the creature's knee joint, temporarily destabilizing it. "Rangers!" A voice thundered across the battlefield, the dinosaur creature speaking with metallic distortion. "Lord Mesogog demands the Dragon Stone. Surrender it, or Pterosaurus will reduce this pathetic city to rubble. The only thing getting reduced today is you, fossil face." The blue fighter retorted, firing some kind of energy weapon that the creature deflected with a forearm guard. Naruto observed for precisely 3 more seconds, analyzing strengths, weaknesses, and tactical patterns. These Rangers fought well but lacked the killer instinct of shinobi. They were protectors, not assassins. The creature, Pterosaurus, possessed surprising tactical intelligence. For what appeared to be a mindless beast. A young woman with honey-brown hair caught Naruto's attention as she struggled to drag an elderly man away from the combat zone. They wouldn't make it before the next energy blast, which the creature was already charging. Naruto flashed through hand signs. Wind style. Vacuum sphere. Compressed air bullets struck the creature's cannon arm with precision, disrupting its targeting systems. The energy discharge went wide, demolishing an empty hot dog stand instead of the fleeing civilians. All combatants froze momentarily, heads swiveling toward Naruto's position. "Who the hell is that?" the yellow fighter demanded, her stance shifting defensively. The creature recovered first, optical sensors locking onto Naruto with malevolent intelligence. Unidentified energy signature detected. Priority target acquired. Initiating capture protocol. "Yeah, good luck with that," Naruto muttered, dropping into a combat stance as the creature abandoned its fight with the Rangers and charged directly toward him. 20 yards away, concealed behind an administrative building, Principal Randall observed the unfolding chaos through narrowed eyes. The sleek business suit and severe hairstyle of her public persona belied her true nature as Elsa, devoted servant of Lord Mesogog. She'd been monitoring the Ranger battle when the dimensional anomaly triggered every sensor in her concealed scanner. "Fascinating," she whispered, adjusting the device to capture more detailed readings of the blonde stranger. "That energy signature, it's unlike anything in our database." The young man moved with impossible speed and precision, creating duplicates of himself through some unknown power. Not Ranger technology, not alien technology familiar to their records, something entirely new. Mesogog would be extremely interested in this development. She tapped her communicator. "My lord, we have an unexpected variable in play. Recommend immediate retrieval for analysis." The response came instantly, Mesogog's sibilant voice slithering through her earpiece. "Proceed with caution, Elsa. If Pterosaurus fails, retreat and observe. This anomaly requires further study." "Understood." She smiled coldly, watching as the stranger engaged Pterosaurus with abilities that defied conventional understanding. "This should be educational." Across the park, drive. Tommy Oliver's communicator beeped urgently as Haley's voice broke through. "Tommy, are you seeing this? The energy readings from that dimensional rift are off the charts." "Little busy at the moment, Haley," Tommy replied, ducking beneath Pterosaurus's tail sweep. As the Black Dino Thunder Ranger, he'd faced countless monsters, but something about today's battle felt fundamentally different. The dimensional tear had appeared seconds before Pterosaurus, suggesting Mesogog hadn't created this particular disturbance. "The new player on the field," Haley continued, her fingers outy blithe tapping across keyboards in their underground command center. "His energy signature doesn't match anything in our database, Not Mesogog's creations, not other rangers, nothing from any known dimension. Tommy spared a glance toward the blonde stranger who now faced Pterosaurus directly. The young man, barely out of his teens, from what Tommy could tell, moved with the fluid grace of a master martial artist. Yet employed techniques Tommy had never witnessed in his long career as a ranger. Copy that. We'll try to contain the situation and bring in our unexpected guest for questioning. Be careful, Haley warned. Whatever he is, he's putting out more power than your entire team combined. That revelation gave Tommy pause. If Haley's readings were accurate, and they always were, this N.E.W. Comer represented either their greatest ally or most dangerous threat yet. Pterosaurus charged Naruto with surprising speed for its bulk, mechanical claws extended to impale or capture. Naruto Ted until the last possible moment before sidestepping with practiced ease, allowing the creature's momentum to carry it past him. As it passed, he delivered a chakra-enhanced palm strike to its shoulder joint, targeting what appeared to be a connection point between organic and mechanical components. The creature roared in pain as sparks erupted from damaged circuitry. It pivoted with unexpected agility, its tail whipping toward Naruto's head in a lethal arc. He ducked beneath the strike, simultaneously forming a Rasengan in his right hand. The swirling chakra sphere hummed with controlled power as he drove it into Pterosaurus's exposed flank. Rasengan. The impact sent the creature cartwheeling across the park, its armor plating cracked and smoking from the concentrated chakra. It rashed through a picnic area before slamming into a maintenance shed, which collapsed around its stunned form. The four rangers stared in evident shock, weapons half lowered. Did he just? The Blue Ranger began. Yeah, the Red Ranger confirmed. He totally did. The Yellow Ranger stepped forward cautiously. Who are you? What was that energy you just used? Naruto turned slowly, assessing the four suited figures. Their energy signatures felt unusual. Not quite chakra, but something resonant with natural energy in a way that reminded him of Sage Mode. They radiated protective intent rather than hostility, reinforcing his initial assessment as defenders rather than aggressors. Name's Naruto Uzumaki, he answered, keeping his stance neutral but ready. As for what I just used, where I come from, we call it chakra. Before further conversation could develop, Pterosaurus erupted from the rubble with a mechanical screech. Its damaged system sparked and smoked, but combat capabilities remained operational. The creature's chest plate separated, revealing a central cannon that began gathering ominous red energy. Adaptive response initiated, it announced in that grating metallic voice. Target resistance exceeds parameters. Implementing Omega Protocol. That doesn't sound good, Naruto muttered, preparing another jutsu. Everyone down. The Black Ranger shouted, recognizing the charging weapon. That's a matter destabilizer. The cannon discharged with blinding intensity, the beam cutting through the air directly toward Naruto. He prepared to dodge, but miscalculated the weapon's tracking capability. The beam adjusted its trajectory mid-flight, following his movement with unnatural precision. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 20 clones materialized in a defensive formation, creating a buffer zone between Naruto and the energy beam. The first wave of clones disintegrated instantly upon contact with the destabilizing energy, but their sacrifice bought crucial seconds. Naruto formed hand seals for a more powerful defensive technique when the Yellow Ranger unexpectedly appeared at his side. Terra Shield, she called, deploying a yellow energy barrier that intercepted the remainder of the beam. The shield held, but the strain showed in her stance as she braced against the overwhelming force. I've got you, Naruto assured her, channeling his chakra to reinforce her position. The combination of their energies created an unexpected resonance, the shield glowing with increased luminosity where his chakra merged with her power. The beam finally dissipated, leaving the Yellow Ranger staggering slightly from exertion. Naruto steadied her with a hand on her shoulder, surprised by the immediate compatibility of their respective energies. Thanks for the save, he said. Returning the favor, she replied, her voice slightly breathless behind her helmet. Those people you rescued, one of them was my friend. Their momentary connection was interrupted as Pterosaurus charged again, this time targeting both of them. The other rangers converged from different angles, forcing the creature to divide its attention. Tyranno Staff, the Red Ranger called, his weapon materializing as he delivered a powerful strike to Pterosaurus's damaged shoulder. Tricera shield. Blue Ranger followed, ramming his shield into the creature's knee joint. Brachio staff. The Black Ranger completed the assault with an energy wave that further destabilized their opponent. Naruto assessed the situation with tactical precision. Your attacks work better in combination, he observed. The energy synchronizes, creating exponential rather than additive damage. The Yellow Ranger gave him a surprised look. How could you possibly know that? We only discovered it ourselves last month. He tapped his temple with a slight smile. I can sense energy patterns. Always could, even before. He trailed off, unsure how to explain his status as a Jinchuriki to these strangers. Look out, she warned as Pterosaurus recovered and fired another energy blast. They separated, diving in opposite directions as the beam carved a smoldering trench through the earth between them. Naruto rolled to his feet, forming a familiar cross-shaped hand seal. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. 50 clones materialized across the battlefield, surrounding Pterosaurus in a coordinated attack pattern. The creature spun frantically, unable to target so many identical opponents simultaneously. The Rangers paused in evident shock at the multiplication technique. Did he just create solid copies of himself? Blue Ranger asked incredulously. 50 of them, Red Ranger confirmed, equally stunned. Black Ranger's response carried a hint of experienced pragmatism. Let's use the distraction. Connor, Ethan, flank right. Kira, with me on the left. As the Rangers repositioned, Naruto's clones launched a synchronized assault. Each clone delivered precisely targeted strikes against. He identified weak points in Pterosaurus's construction. The creature fought back ferociously, destroying clones with each successful counterattack, but the sheer numbers overwhelmed its targeting systems. Naruto himself hung back, analyzing the effectiveness of each strike, gathering tactical data with each clone that dispersed. The creature's right knee joint was particularly vulnerable, as was the connection point between its organic spine and mechanical support structure. Most importantly, he identified the primary power source, a pulsing crystal embedded in its chest cavity, visible only when the chest plate separated for weapon discharge. Rangers, he called out, instinctively taking command of the situation. It's powered by a crystal in its chest. The plate opens when it's preparing a major attack. The Black Ranger nodded in acknowledgement. Good eye, Connor. We need the Z-Rex blaster. On it. Red Ranger. Connor confirmed as the team began combining their weapons into a single, more powerful configuration. Naruto recognized the strategy immediately, similar to how certain combination jutsu required precise timing and positioning. He directed his remaining clones to provoke Pterosaurus into revealing its chest cavity again. You'll need a clear shot, he told the Rangers as his clones implemented the provocative attack pattern. And only a few seconds before it closes again. The Yellow Ranger, Kira, he'd heard someone call her, moved closer to him. How are you coordinating all those copies simultaneously? They're not copies, they're shadow clones, he explained briefly. Each has independent thought but shares my consciousness. When they disperse, their experiences return to me. Her helmet concealed her expression, but her body language conveyed impressed surprise. That's actually amazing. The strategy worked perfectly. Pterosaurus, besieged from multiple directions, initiated its ultimate attack sequence. The chest plate separated, exposing the pulsing power crystal as energy began gathering for another devastating beam. Now, Naruto shouted, his remaining clones clearing a path for the Rangers' combined weapon. Z-Rex blaster, fire. The Rangers called in unison. The weapon discharged a concentrated beam of multicolored energy directly into Pterosaurus's exposed chest cavity. The crystal shattered with a resonant crystalline sound, followed by cascading systems failures throughout the creature's body. Pterosaurus convulsed violently as energy overloaded its circuits, then exploded in a spectacular display of fire, smoke, and fragmented components. Naruto's remaining clones dispersed in puffs of smoke as he relaxed his stance, surveying the destruction with a critical eye. Nice weapon, he commented as the Rangers approached cautiously, their combined blaster separating back into individual components. Nice, whatever that clone technique is, the Blue Ranger, Ethan, he'd heard, responded. I've never seen anything like it. Neither have we, the Black Ranger added, his tone measured and cautious. Which raises several important questions about who you are and where you came from. Naruto weighed his options carefully. These Rangers had fought honorably to protect civilians, something he respected immensely. Their techniques suggested significant power, but their restraint indicated discipline and moral boundaries. Still, caution remained essential in an unknown world. I told you my name, he replied evenly. As for where I came from, I'm trying to figure that out myself. That tear in the sky wasn't my doing. Before the conversation could continue, the ground shook violently. Dark clouds materialized above the battlefield, swirling into an ominous vortex. A torrent of what appeared to be rain fell specifically on Pterosaurus's scattered remains. To Naruto's astonishment, the components began reassembling, growing exponentially in size until a skyscraper-sized version of Pterosaurus towered above Reefside Park. You have got to be kidding me, Naruto muttered, craning his neck to view the gigantic creature. Hydro Regenerator, the Black Ranger explained grimly. Mesogog's favorite trick. The Red Ranger stepped forward. We need the Zords. Naruto watched in amazement as the Rangers summoned enormous mechanical constructs that resembled prehistoric creatures, a red Tyrannosaurus, blue Triceratops, yellow Pterodactyl, and black Brachiosaurus. The Rangers leapt impossibly high, teleporting into control chambers within each mechanical beast. Are those mecha summoning jutsu? Naruto wondered aloud, momentarily forgetting his caution in the face of such spectacular technology. As the mechanical dinosaurs engaged the towering Pterosaurus, Naruto felt a strange pulse from within his jacket pocket. Reaching inside, he discovered a stone he'd never seen before, roughly the size of his palm, black as midnight yet containing swirling patterns that seemed to shift between deep purple and silver when caught in the light. What the? He examined the object carefully, sensing an energy signature that resonated with his own chakra in unsettling familiarity. The stone hadn't been in his possession before the dimensional transit, he was certain of that fact. The stone pulsed again, warming in his palm as it synchronized with his heartbeat. Images flashed through his mind. A dragon wreathed in shadows, ancient warriors channeling familiar yet different energy, and something that resembled sage mode but connected to reptilian rather than amphibian nature energy. His inspection was interrupted by a feminine voice behind him. You should probably clear the area. These fights tend to cause significant collateral damage. Naruto turned to find a young woman with honey brown hair and amber eyes watching him intently. She wore casual clothes, jeans, yellow top, and a leather jacket, but something in her stance suggested the disciplined alertness of a trained fighter. You're the Yellow Ranger, he stated rather than asked, recognizing her energy signature despite the absence of her helmet and uniform. She stiffened momentarily, then sighed. How did you? Never mind. After what you just did with those clones, I shouldn't be surprised. She extended her hand. Here Ford. And yes, I left a holographic projection in my Zord while the autopilot handles the initial formation sequence. I figured someone should make sure you don't disappear before we get some answers. Naruto accepted the handshake, noting the calluses on her fingers, musician's hands, but also a fighter's. Smart tactical decision. I might have done the same. Above them, the four mechanical dinosaurs combined into a unified humanoid construct that engaged Pterosaurus with impressive coordination. The giant robot wielded a massive sword against the creature's claws, each impact sending shockwaves through the air. Does this happen often? Naruto asked, gesturing toward the colossal battle. Monster attacks. About 3 times a week lately, Kira replied with surprising nonchalance. Giant robot battles. Pretty much every time. She studied him carefully. You're really not from around here, are you? That obvious, huh? Naruto managed a rueful smile. Unless, around here, includes different dimensions, then no. The stone in his hand pulsed again, more insistently this time. Kira's eyes widened as she noticed it. As that? Where did you get that? Her voice dropped to an urgent whisper. It appeared in my pocket after I arrived. Why? Do you recognize it? Before she could answer, the stone emitted a blinding flash of light. Naruto felt his chakra responding, networks flaring throughout his body as the stone's energy synchronized with his own. The sensation resembled entering sage mode but followed different pathways, more primal, connected to something ancient and reptilian rather than the balanced natural energy he'd mastered with the toads. Kira stepped back, her expression shifting from suspicion to astonishment. That's impossible, Doctor. O said all the Dino gems had been found. Dino gem, Naruto repeated, the unfamiliar term bringing no clarity. The source of our ranger powers, she explained quickly, eyeing the stone with evident concern. But that one, I've never seen a black gem with purple energy before. The stone, Dino gem, apparently, pulsed a third time, projecting a holographic image between them. A stylized dragon coiled around a shuriken-like star, wreathed in shadow energy that resembled the darkened version of Sea Hakra Naruto had encountered in his battles with Sasuke. The shadow dragon, Kira whispered. There were legends in the ancient texts, but O thought they were just myths. Naruto felt nulled, ge flowing directly into his consciousness, not unlike how nature chakra communicated environmental awareness during Sage Mode. The shadow dragon had existed before recorded history, a guardian that averted dimensional boundaries when threats arose that single worlds couldn't contain alone. It selected champions with specific qualities, unbreakable will, selfless protection instinct, and the kappa city to harness shadow energies without succumbing to darkness. It chose me, Naruto realized, the concept simultaneously foreign and familiar. The Kyuubi had been sealed within him without choice, but this power offered itself willingly. Recognizing something in his nature that resonated with its purpose. Above them, the Megazord, as Naruto somehow knew it was called, struggled against Terror Source's upgraded form. A particularly vicious attack sent the mechanical warrior staggering backward, dangerously close to a residential area. Naruto closed his fist around the gem, making an intuitive decision. How do I help them? Kira hesitated only briefly. If it's really bonded to you, you should be able to transform like we do. But without a morpher device. The gem flared again, shadows swirling around Naruto's wrist and solidifying into a device that resembled the Ranger's transformational equipment but with distinct modifications. The band was matte black with purple tribal markings, and the central component featured the dragon shuriken emblem. I think that problem just solved itself, Naruto observed dryly. It's never been that easy for any of us, Kira muttered. Then more loudly. Focus on the gem's energy and call out, Dino Thunder, power up. If it works, your instincts should handle the rest. Naruto centered himself with a deep breath, aligning his chakra with the gem's resonant frequency. The sensation felt similar to nature transformation techniques, altering his energy's fundamental properties to achieve specific effects. He raised the morpher to chest level, chakra and gem energy swirling in visible patterns around his body. Dino Thunder, power up. Energy exploded outward from the gem, enveloping him in shadows that solidified into armor unlike the other rangers. Primarily black with deep purple accents, the suit featured scale-like patterns across its surface. The helmet formed last, its visor shaped like draconic eyes with a subtle shuriken pattern embedded in the forehead design. Shadow energy continued to wisp from the armor's edges, giving him an ethereal, slightly intimidating appearance. Kira stared in undisguised amazement. The Shadow Dragon Ranger, she breathed. It's actually real. Naruto examined his transformed state with professional assessment. The armor felt surprisingly natural, lighter than Anbu gear but seemingly offering superior protection. He could sense his chakra flowing freely through pathways integrated within the suit, actually amplifying rather than restricting his abilities. How do I call a Zord, was it? He asked, watching the struggling Megazord take another punishing blow. If the legends are true, Kira replied, you don't call it. The Shadow Dragon exists in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, it answers when needed. As if responding to her words, the sky darkened further. A new dimensional tear appeared, smaller and more controlled than the one that had brought Naruto to this world. From within the rift emerged a mechanical dragon unlike any of the dinosaur Zords. Its body was sleek and serpentine, primarily black with purple energy pulsing along circuit-like patterns across its surface. Unlike the other Zords, it seemed to phase partially in and out of reality, shadows clinging to its form as it circled the battlefield with predatory grace. I need to get back to my Zord, Kira said urgently. The others need to know what's happening. She paused, studying Naruto's transformed appearance once more. I still have about 1,000 questions for you, but they can wait until after we deal with Pterosaurus. Agreed, Naruto nodded, feeling an instinctive connection forming with the circling dragon Zord. I think I know what to do now. Kira's holography. See projection dissolved as she fully returned to her Pterosaur. Naruto centered himself, extending his consciousness toward the shadow dragon as he would when communicating with summons in his world. His response was immediate, a mental connection far deeper than he'd anticipated, carrying impressions of ancient battles across multiple realities and guardians who had wielded its power throughout millennia. Shadow Dragon Zord, he called, leaping impossibly high as the dragon swept down to catch him. Unlike the other rangers who piloted their Zords from internal control chambers, Naruto found himself merging partially with the dragon Zord's consciousness. He stood on its head in a specialized control platform, connected through chakra linkages that translated his movements and intentions directly to the mechanical beast. This is different, he murmured, acclimating to the shared consciousness. The Megazord had regained its footing but showed significant damage across its chassis. Through the communication system that had automatically integrated with his helmet, Naruto heard the rangers' voices. What is that? Connor's surprised tone came through clearly. Another Zord, Ethan questioned. It's the Shadow Dragon, Drive. Oliver's voice held a mixture of awe and concern. From the ancient texts. And that's our mysterious visitor piloting it, Kira added. Doctor. Oh, the Black Dino gem bonded with him. Before further discussion could develop, Pterosaurus launched another attack. The Megazord blocked the initial strike but failed to anticipate the secondary tail sweep, sending it crashing into an office building. Need some help? Naruto called through the communication system as the Shadow Dragon circled above the battlefield. Doctor. Oliver responded after a brief hesitation. We've never synchronized with an unknown Zord before. The integration protocols. No time for protocols, Naruto interrupted, channeling his experience with improvisational battlefield tactics. I'll follow your lead, but we need to hit it simultaneously from multiple angles. A moment of silence followed before Drive. Oliver's decisive voice returned. Agreed. Connor. Ethan, prepare the thunder strike. Kira, maintain altitude advantage. Our new ally will attack from the dimensional blind spot. Naruto interpreted the unfamiliar terminology through the Dragon Zord's embedded knowledge. The dimensional blind spot referred to the dragon's ability to partially phase between realities, approaching from angles physically impossible for conventional attackers. Ready when you are, he confirmed, directing the Shadow Dragon higher into the clouds. The Megazord engaged Pterosaurus directly, its movements more aggressive now that it had support. The monster focused entirely on the immediate threat, unaware of the Shadow Dragon circling into position. Now, Doctor, Oliver commanded. The Megazord executed its thunder strike, the energy blade slashing across Pterosaurus's chest plate. Simultaneously, Naruto directed the Shadow Dragon into a diving attack, phasing partially between dimensions as it plummeted toward the distracted monster. Shadow Strike, Naruto called instinctively, the dragon responding by channeling his chakra through specialized conduits. The Shadow Dragon's form became even more ethereal, passing partially through Pterosaurus while delivering an attack that affected both physical and energy planes simultaneously. The monster convulsed as shadow energy disrupted its internal systems, creating vulnerabilities throughout its structure. Finishing move, Connor called as the Megazord positioned for a final strike. Combining energies, Naruto responded, directing the Shadow Dragon to circle the Megazord, leaving a trail of shadow energy that the larger robot absorbed into its sword. Shadow Thunder Saber, activate. The Rangers called in unison. The empowered blade cleaved through Pterosaurus with devastating precision. The monster froze momentarily, internal systems flickering, before exploding in a spectacular display that momentarily turned night into day across Reefside. As debris rained harmlessly across the battlefield, the Shadow Dragon circled back toward the park where the conflict had begun. The Megazord followed, both mechanical constructs powering down as the immediate threat ended. Naruto leapt from the Dragon Zord's control platform, landing gracefully in the park as his ranger form dissolved back into civilian clothes. The Shadow Dragon gave a mechanical roar before disappearing into another dimensional rift, returning to its extra-dimensional harbor until needed again. The other rangers arrived moments later, their own transformations reverting as they approached Naruto with understandable caution. Dr. Oliver, the Black Ranger, led the group. In his civilian form, he appeared to be in his early 30s, with short dark hair and the bearing of someone who had seen numerous battles. I think, drive, Oliver said evenly. We have a lot to discuss. Naruto nodded, the Dino gem now dormant but still pulsing with potential in his palm. Agreed, starting with where exactly I am and how I get back home. And what exactly you are, added Connor, the former Red Ranger, a tall, athletic young man who carried himself with the confidence of a natural leader, if somewhat less maturity than Naruto had initially assessed. That's a longer conversation, Naruto replied with a hint of weariness. The dimensional transition and subsequent battle had depleted more chakra than he'd realized. Kira stepped forward, her expression more open than her teammates. You saved civilians without knowing anything about our world. That counts for something in my book. Civilian protection is universal, Naruto responded simply. Some principles transcended dimensional boundaries. Dr. Oliver studied him thoughtfully before making a decision. We have a secure location where we can talk freely. Given that, the Shadow Dragon gem has bonded with you, I think it's safe to say you're connected to our situation whether any of us planned it or not. And Mesogog will be looking for you, added Ethan, the former Blue Ranger, shorter than Connor. With darker skin and an intelligent gleam in his eyes that reminded Naruto somewhat of Shikamaru. That monster was specifically seeking the Dragon Stone, which apparently found you instead. Naruto weighed his options carefully. In an unknown dimension, potential allies with local knowledge were invaluable. These rangers had fought honorably and seemed genuinely committed to protecting their world. The Dragon Gem had chosen him for reasons that remained unclear but felt purposeful rather than random. Lead the way, he finally agreed. But I should warn you, where I come from, I'm a shinobi. A ninja. We tend to be paranoid about new situations. Dr. Oliver's expression shifted to one of surprised recognition. A ninja, with energy manipulation abilities and combat training. He shared a significant look with his team. That's actually not as unfamiliar as you might think. We'll explain at the lab, Kira added with a slight smile. Trust goes both ways. From her concealed position, Elsa observed the Rangers departing with their dimensional visitor. The scanner in her hand continued recording energy signatures, particularly the transfer Mashin sequence that had revealed the existence of the mythical Shadow Dragon Ranger. Mesogog will be most interested in this development, she murmured, transmitting the data through secure channels. The initial mission had failed. But the intelligence gathered was far more valuable than a simple monster victory would have been. As the group disappeared from view, Elsa noticed a small object glinting in the grass where the blonde stranger had first appeared. Moving cautiously forward, she discovered an unusual three-pronged kunai knife with strange symbols inscribed on its handle. A souvenir from another dimension. She smiled coldly, pocketing the weapon. This might prove useful in tracking our visitor. She activated her teleportation device, disappearing in a flash of green energy. The battle had ended, but a far more interesting war had just begun. Dr. Tommy Oliver's underground laboratory hummed with technology beyond anything Naruto had encountered in the elemental nations. Screens displayed data streams he couldn't begin to interpret, while equipment of unknown purpose lined the walls of the cavernous space beneath an unassuming suburban home. Welcome to Ranger Headquarters, Drive, Oliver said as the hidden entrance sealed behind them. It's not much, but it's secure. And it has excellent coffee, added a red-haired woman who approached from a workstation. I'm Haley Zichter, technical advisor to this somewhat chaotic operation. She extended her hand to Naruto, studying him with evident scientific curiosity. Naruto Uzumaki, he replied, accepting the hand shake while continuing to scan the environment with habitual situational awareness. The dimensional traveler with shadow clone abilities and chakra manipulation, Haley noted with remarkable casualness. Your energy readings are fascinating, by the way. Unlike anything in our databases. Naruto raised an eyebrow at her immediate knowledge of his abilities. You were monitoring the battle. Every second, she confirmed, gesturing toward screens displaying multiple angles of the earlier conflict. These systems track all Ranger-related activities across Reefside. Dr. Oliver moved to a central computer terminal. bringing up images of the dimensional rift that had deposited Naruto into their world. The tear appeared approximately 20 minutes before Pterosaurus attacked. Initial analysis suggests it wasn't created by Mesogog's technology, which means it originated from my side, Naruto finished, frowning thoughtfully. Or from a third party altogether. Kira approached, holding a steaming mug. Thought you might need this. You used a lot of energy out there. Naruto accepted the coffee gratefully, the familiar aroma providing unexpected comfort in this strange environment. Thanks. So, Connor interjected, leaning against a nearby console with arms crossed, are we just accepting that we have a dimension-hopping ninja with weird clone powers on our team now? Because I have questions. Many questions. Starting with what exactly chakra is, Ethan added eagerly. And how you created physical duplicates of yourself. The applications for that technology alone are mind-blowing. It's not technology, Naruto corrected, deciding that basic information exchange was necessary for productive cooperation. Where I come from, chakra is life energy, AC. Combination of physical and spiritual energy that flows through all living things. Shinobi, ninja, are trained from childhood to mold and manipulate this energy for various techniques. He demonstrated, by channeling a small amount of chakra to his palm, creating a visible blue swirl of energy that illuminated the surrounding area. The Rangers watched with varying expressions of amazement and scientific interest. Remarkable, drive, Oliver murmured. It's similar to the morphin grid energy that powers Ranger abilities, but with distinct biological integration. And the shadow clones, Ethan pressed, a specific jutsu technique that creates solid duplicates with independent thought but shared consciousness. Naruto formed the hand seal, creating a single clone beside him to demonstrate. H contains a portion of my chakra and can perform independent actions. When they disperse, their experiences and memories return to me. The Rangers exchanged impressed glances as the clone waved before disappearing in a puff of smoke. That would be incredibly useful for exam studying, Ethan commented wistfully. Haley had been monitoring instruments throughout the demonstration, her expression growing increasingly intrigued. The energy patterns are extraordinary. There's definitely resonance with the morphin grid, but it follows biological pathways rather than technological ones. Why? CH explains why the Shadow Dragon gem bonded with you so readily, drive. Oliver concluded, turning his attention to the black stone that Naruto had placed on a nearby scanner. It recognized compatible energy patterns. Naruto frowned slightly. You keep mentioning this morphin grid and Dino gems. I think it's your turn to explain some basics. Doctor. Oliver nodded. Fair enough. He brought up a whole graphic display showing the history of the Power Rangers, teams of warriors across decades who had defended Earth against various extraterrestrial and supernatural threats. As the presentation continued, Naruto absorbed the information with growing understanding. The Power Rangers served a role similar to Shinobi in his world, protectors with specialized abilities who stood between ordinary citizens and extraordinary threats. Their powers derived from an energy field called the morphin grid rather than chakra, channeled through technological means rather than biological training. And these Dino gems, drive, Oliver concluded, indicating specialized crystals displayed on the screen, are fragments of the meteor that caused the dinosaurs' extinction. They bonded with dinosaur DNA and morphin grid energy to create specific powers for each bearer. Red for super speed, blue for armored skin, yellow for sonic screams, black for invisibility, white for camouflage, Kira listed. Each gem EKS out someone with compatible personality traits and biology. Which makes the Shadow Dragon gem particularly mysterious, Haley added, examining the black stone with specialized equipment. It wasn't part of our original research. And according to these readings, it doesn't match the molecular structure of the other gems exactly. Because it's not just from this dimension, Naruto suggested. The knowledge somehow surfacing from his connection with the gem. It exists partially in multiple realities simultaneously, allowing its bearer to act as a guardian across dimensional boundaries. The room fell silent as the implications settled. You think that's why you're here? Kira finally asked. The gem somehow pulled you across dimensions because it needed you. Naruto considered the possibility. Or something created the dimensional rift, and the gem recognized me as compatible when I arrived. He sighed, running a hand through his spiky blonde hair. Either way, I need to find a path back to my world. People there depend on me. Doctor. Oliver nodded in understanding. We'll help you figure this out, Naruto. But I should warn you, interdimensional travel isn't exactly our specialty. It could take time. And in the meantime, Connor added, we have a dinosaur-obsessed mutant freak who's definitely going to be coming after you and that gem. Mesogogue, Naruto recalled from the battle. Your primary enemy, evil scientist transformed into a dinosaur-human hybrid with delusions of returning Earth to the age of dinosaurs, Ethan summarized succinctly. Plus his charming assistants, Elsa, Zeltrax, and an endless supply of genetically engineered monsters. And now he knows about you and the Shadow Dragon, Kira concluded. Which means you'll need somewhere safe to stay while we figure this out. Doctor, Oliver considered for a moment. I have a spare room here. It makes sense to keep the Shadow Dragon gem close to our base of operations anyway. And we'll need a cover story for you in town. Haley added practically. Reefside is small enough that strangers get noticed. Exchange student program, Ethan suggested. We could say he's shadowing Drive. Oh, for a teaching internship or something. Naruto listened to the logistics discussion with mixed feelings. These rangers were being remarkably accommodating to a dimensional intruder who had appeared in the middle of their battle. Their willingness to help him return home while offering protection in the interim demonstrated admirable character. Still, the shinobi in him maintained cautious vigilance. This world operated by unfamiliar rules. And the Shadow Dragon gem represented an unknown variable in an already complicated equation. Thank you, he said finally, interrupting the planning session. For the help and the trust. Both are unexpected, given the circumstances. Kira offered a slight smile. You jumped into a fight to protect civilians without knowing anything about our world. That says a lot about who you are. Besides, Connor added with a grin, anyone who can make 50 copies of themselves to confuse monsters is welcome on my team. It's settled then, Drive. Oliver concluded. Naruto stays with me while we research dimensional travel options and monitor for further anomalies. Haley will create necessary documentation for his cover identity, and the rest of you maintain normal routines to avoid drawing attention. As the meeting concluded and the rangers prepared to depart, Naruto found himself standing beside Kira near the lab entrance. This isn't how I expected today to go, he admitted quietly. Waking up in Konoha, ending the day as a Power Ranger in another dimension. If it helps, she responded with genuine empathy, most of us didn't expect to become Rangers either. Life has a way of throwing the unexpected at you. Naruto smiled at the universal truth in her statement. In my world, we have a saying. A shinobi's life is defined not by how they live, but by what they die to protect. Dark, but oddly fitting, Kira observed. Rangers protect too, it's pretty much the job description. Their conversation was interrupted as Dr. Oliver called Naruto to review security protocols for the laboratory. As he moved away, Naruto caught Kira watching him with thoughtful curiosity. Whatever strange twist of fate or purposeful design had brought him to this dimension. He sensed that the Shadow Dragon gem's choice was not random coincidence. For now, he would adapt and survive as shinobi always did, observing, learning, and preparing for whatever challenges this new world might present. The path home would reveal itself in time, but until then, perhaps being the Shadow Dragon Ranger would prove an interesting detour in his already unconventional journey. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Shadows and Scales. Naruto stared at the glowing rectangular device in his hand with undisguised suspicion. Tommy had called it a smartphone, a communication tool, information repository, navigation system, and entertainment center condensed into a single handheld object. In a world without chakra-infused scrolls or messenger birds, apparently this was how people stayed connected. Just press your thumb on the circle at the bottom, Tommy instructed patiently, leaning against the kitchen counter of his woodland home. Morning sunlight filtered through the windows, casting dappled patterns across the polished wood floor. It's programmed to recognize your fingerprint. And this isn't some kind of tracking seal? Naruto questioned, turning the device over to examine its seamless construction. Tommy suppressed a smile. Well, technically it can be tracked through GPS and cellular networks, but not in the way you're thinking. Everyone here has one. It's normal technology. Not ninja surveillance equipment. Naruto pressed his thumb against the sensor, watching with grudging fascination as the screen illuminated with colorful icons. Days in this dimension had done little to normalize its technological wonders. The shinobi in him remained vigilant for potential threats, while another part, perhaps the same curiosity that had driven him to master the Rasengan, found himself increasingly intrigued by this world's innovations. I've programmed my number, the ranger's contacts, and the direct line to the lab, Tommy continued, pointing to specific icons. The map application will help you navigate Reefside until you're familiar with the layout. And remember, no shadow clones in public, no visible chakra manipulation, no discussing dimensional travel or Power Rangers with anyone outside the team. Naruto recited the now familiar security protocols. Maintain cover as exchange student from Kanahagakure University, SP. Specializing in ancient martial arts philosophy. Good, Tommy nodded approvingly. Your documents should hold up to standard scrutiny, but the less attention you draw, the better. The fabricated CK ground Haley had created was impressive, a digital identity complete with academic records, passport, and visa documentation that would satisfy casual investigation. Naruto had memorized the details, with the same precision he once applied to mission parameters in Anbu. Speaking of attention, Tommy continued, checking his watch, we should leave in 15 minutes for school. Principal Randall will want to review your observation paperwork before first period. Naruto nodded, slipping the phone into the pocket of jeans that still felt strange compared to his customary shinobi attire. The civilian clothes Tommy had provided, dark jeans, a black t-shirt with subtle purple accents, and a lightweight jacket, were comfortable enough but lacked the utility of garments designed for combat. At least the Shadow Dragon Morpher remained securely on his wrist, disguised as an ordinary watch when not activated. The Dino gem itself had been integrated into the device, maintaining constant contact with his chakra network while remaining inconspicuous. Any luck with the interdimensional research? Naruto asked, gathering the backpack containing notebooks and reference materials supporting his cover story. Tommy's expression sobered. Haley's running analysis on energy signatures from the rift that brought you here. It's complex. The interaction between your chakra and our dimensiona. Boundaries doesn't follow established patterns. Which means I'm staying for a while, Naruto concluded, masking disappointment behind pragmatic acceptance. His friends in Konoha would be searching for him, Sakura's medical expertise, Shikamaru's strategic brilliance, Kakashi's experience with space-time techniques. But until a solution presented itself, adaptation remained his only viable strategy. We'll figure it out, Tommy assured him, recognizing the flicker of homesickness. In the meantime, consider this an intelligence-gathering mission in unfamiliar territory. Naruto appreciated the framing, viewing his displacement as a mission rather than misfortune-provided structure and purpose. Reconnaissance and asset cultivation in hostile environment. Standard Anbu protocol. Exactly, Tommy agreed, though his expression suggested he found the comparison between high school and hostile territory more accurate than he cared to admit. Let's move out. As they departed in Tommy's jeep, Naruto gazed at the passing landscape with analytical attention. Reefside presented a curious blend of natural beauty and technological development, dense forests surrounding a modest urban center. Mountains looming in the distance beyond carefully maintained neighborhoods. So different from Konoha's architectural style, yet serving the same fundamental human needs for community and shelter. Tommy's black Jeep wound through suburban streets before merging onto a main road leading toward Reefside High School. Just so you know, he mentioned as they approached the campus, the other Angers maintain their civilian identities at school. We interact as teacher and students, not as teammates, unless there's an emergency. Compartmentalization. Naruto nodded in understanding. We said similar protocols for embedded operatives. Right, Tommy responded, though his sidelong glance suggested he found the comparison between high school social dynamics and ninja espionage somewhat concerning. Just try to blend in. Observe more than you participate, at least initially. The parking lot bustled with activity as students arrived for the day, groups congregating around vehicles. Individuals hurrying toward the building with coffee cups clutched like lifelines, faculty members moving with purposeful strides. Naruto cataloged the social patterns automatically, identifying Hiera, RCHIES and alliances through body language alone. As they exited the vehicle, Naruto noticed Kira near the main entrance, guitar case slung over her shoulder as she conversed with a dark-haired girl in pink. When she spotted them, a brief smile flickered across her face before she schooled her expression to casual indifference, maintaining separation between ranger business and civilian interaction, as protocol dictated. Dr. Oliver. Good morning. The enthusiastic greeting came from a blonde young woman approaching rapidly, camera in hand and determined expression firmly in place. A young man with glasses followed in her wake, carrying recording equipment with a resigned expression. Cassidy Cornell, Reefside News Network, she announced, positioning herself directly in their path. Is it true that you're hosting an international exchange student with specialized knowledge of ancient combat philosophies? Tommy's expression remained pleasantly neutral despite the ambush. Good morning, Cassidy. Yes, this is Naruto Uzumaki from Kanahagakure University. He'll be observing classes as part of his graduate research. Cassidy immediately swiveled toward Naruto, thrusting a microphone toward his face. Mr. Uzumaki, your arrival coincides with reports of a new Power Ranger appearing during Monday's monster attack. Any comment on this remarkable coincidence? Naruto maintained the carefully blank expression he'd perfected during countless interrogations. I was still on the plane during the attack, he responded smoothly, the cover story emerging with practiced ease. Though, these Power Rangers sound like fascinating local phenomena, perhaps similar to the guardian spirits in my country's folklore. And where exactly is Kanahagakure? Cassidy pressed, her journalistic eye. NSTINCTS clearly detecting something unusual despite his measured response. A small island nation in the Western Pacific, Naruto replied, repeating the geographical location Haley had established in his documentation. Known primarily for agricultural exports and traditional martial arts preservation. Before Cassidy could continue her interrogation, a sharp voice cut through the morning air. Ms. Cornell, unless you've suddenly been appointed to the welcoming committee, I suggest you proceed to first period rather than harassing our international guest. Principal Randall approached with measured steps, her tailored business suit and severe hairstyle projecting uncompromising authority. Naruto studied her with careful attention. This was the administrative leader Tommy had briefed him about. Unaware that the Rangers suspected her secret identity as Mesogog's lieutenant. Principal Randall, Tommy greeted with professional courtesy. This is Naruto Uzumaki, the exchange observer I mentioned. Yes, I received your paperwork, she replied crisply, her assessing gaze sweeping over Naruto with clinical precision. Though several details required clarification with the International Studies Office, Naruto met her scrutiny with the calm confidence of someone accustomed to maintaining cover identities. Thank you for accommodating my research visit, Principal Randall. Dr. O.L. Iver speaks highly of Reefside's educational approach to paleontological history. Something flickered behind her eyes, the barest hint of suspicion or perhaps recognition, before her professional mask reasserted itself. Yes, well, drive. Oliver's enthusiasm for dinosaurs borders on obsession. I trust you'll find his classes enlightening, if somewhat excessively focused on extinct reptiles. As she spoke, Naruto subtly extended his sensory perception, a technique refined during years of threat assessment. Her chakra signature, or whatever equivalent energy this dimension's beings possessed, carried unusual patterns. Different from the Ranger's morphin grid resonance. Something darker, yet not entirely corrupted. Interesting. My office, 10 minutes, Randall instructed, checking her watch. F. Are your orientation and security credentials? Dr. Oliver, the faculty meeting begins in 5. With that, she turned sharply and strode toward the administrative building, intercepting and redirecting. Students with curt efficiency as she went. Is she always that intense? Naruto asked quietly once she was beyond earshot. Actually, that was her being welcoming, Tommy replied with dry humor. Quote, Principal Randall runs this school like a military operation. Effective but terrifying, offered Cassidy, who had lingered despite the dismissal. Tommy gave her a pointed look. I believe you have class, Ms. Cornell. As Cassidy reluctantly departed, still glancing back with evident curiosity, Tommy turned to Naruto. Remember, low profile, I'll meet you after third period for the lab observation sessions. Naruto nodded, watching as Tommy headed toward the faculty wing. The shinobi remained motionless for a moment, systematically observing the school grounds from his stationary position. Security cameras positioned at strategic points around the perimeter. Exit routes through main doors, side entrances, and emergency exits. Terrain advantages offered by elevated areas near the athletic fields. Standard situational assessment. You look like you're planning an invasion rather than attending high school. The amused observation came from Kira, who had approached silently enough to impress even his trained senses. Her ability to move undetected suggested natural stealth talent beyond standard ranger training. Old habits, Naruto acknowledged with a slight smile. In my world, entering unfamiliar territory without mapping evacuation routes is considered sloppy technique. Reefside High's dangers are mostly social, not tactical, Kira replied, adjusting the strap of her guitar case. Though I can't promise Principal Randall won't interrogate you until you break. I've withstood professional interrogation before, Naruto shrugged, though her humor wasn't entirely lost on him. Your principal, there's something unusual about her energy signature. Kira's expression shifted subtly, eyes darting to ensure no one was within earshot. We should discuss that later. Not here. Naruto nodded, respecting the security protocols. Understood. Compartmentalization. Right, Kira replied, a slight smile playing at her lips. Though most of us just call it, not talking about ranger stuff at school. You make everything sound like a military operation. Where I come from, it usually is, Naruto responded, though he found himself appreciating her more casual perspective. The constant vigilance of shinobi life created effective warriors but sometimes obscured simpler human interactions. The warning bell rang, prompting a sudden acceleration of movement across campus as students hurried toward their classrooms. That's my cue, Kira said. Try not to overthrow any governments before lunch, Ninja Boy. The teasing nickname caught him off guard, when as the last time someone had addressed him with such casual familiarity. Not since before the war, certainly. The unexpected warmth it evoked was not unwelcome. As Kira disappeared into the stream of students, Naruto turned toward the administrative building. Principal Randall awaited, and while maintaining his cover story was the primary objective, assessing a potential enemy ranked close behind. Principal Randall's office projected calculated intimidation through meticulous organization. Not a paper out of place, not a decorative item without strategic purpose. The certificates and awards adorning the walls served less as personal achievements and more as credentials establishing unquestionable authority. Your documentation is unusual, Mr. Uzumaki, she observed, reviewing his file with narrowed eyes. Kanahagakure University has a remarkably limited digital footprint for an accredited academic institution. We value traditional approaches, Naruto replied smoothly. Many of our records remain in physical archives rather than digital formats. How quaint, Randall responded, skepticism evident in her tone. And your research focus, prehistoric influences on modern combat philosophy with emphasis on reptilian adaptation patterns, seems conveniently aligned with Dr. Oliver's obsessions. Naruto maintained neutral body language despite the pointed interrogation. Quote, academic partnerships often form around shared interests, Principal Randall. Her gaze remained fixed on him with unsettling intensity. Indeed, though I find it curious that your arrival coincided the manifestation of a new Power Ranger during Monday's unfortunate incident. The deliberate probe confirmed Tommy's suspicions about her dual identity. A civilian administrator would refer an monster attack, with fear or concern, not clinical detachment suggesting insider knowledge. I was unaware of any incident, Naruto responded, expression carefully blank. My flight arrived late Monday evening. Dr. Oliver mentioned something about local vigilantes protecting the city. It sounds like an interesting cultural phenomenon. Randall's lips thinned almost imperceptibly. Vigilantes. Yes, that's one perspective. She closed his file with decisive finality. Your temporary credentials are approved, Mr. Uzumaki. You'll have observer access to Dr. Oliver's classes and specified laboratory sessions. All other areas require faculty escort. She slid a laminated badge across the polished desk surface. This must be visible at all times while on campus. Any violation of school policies will result in immediate termination of your research privileges. Am I understood? Perfectly, Principal Randall, Naruto replied, accepting the badge with appropriate deference. I appreciate your accommodation of my academic interests. Don't mistake administrative procedure for personal accommodation, Mr. Uzumaki, she corrected coldly. I merely fulfill my obligations to the International Academic Exchange Program. Your presence here is a bureaucratic footnote, nothing more. As Naruto rose to leave, Randall added with deliberate casualness, one final question, that unusual marking on your cheek. Some form of cultural decoration. Naruto touched the whisker-like marks that had been part of his appearance since birth, a physical manifestation of the Kyuubi's influence during his prenatal development. A birthmark. From my mother's lineage. Something sparked in Randall's eyes. Recognition or calculation, he couldn't determine which. How distinctive. That will be all, Mr. Uzumaki. As the door closed behind him, Naruto remained conscious of her continued scrutiny. The interaction had confirmed his suspicions. Principal Randall was more than she appeared, her interest in him extending beyond administrative oversight. Whether this represented immediate threat or strategic opportunity remained to be determined. For now, intelligence gathering continued. He consulted the schedule on his newly acquired phone, identifying Tommy's first paleontology lecture as his initial observation target. As he navigated the rapidly emptying hallways, his trained senses remained alert for further surveillance. The game had begun. Elsa waited precisely 90 seconds after the dimensional interloper departed before activating her secure communication channel. The OFIC's standard security cameras had been disabled, replaced with systems that transmitted directly to Mesogog's island fortress rather than school security archives. My lord, she reported, voice low despite the privacy measures. I've confirmed your suspicions. The new arrival matches the energy signature detected during Monday's battle. Mesogog's reptilian visage materialized on her concealed monitor. Cold eyes narrowing with predatory interest. Excellent work, Elsa. Physical assessment. Athletic build suggesting combat training. Unusual facial markings. Carries himself with the balanced awareness of a trained fighter. Though attempting to conceal it, his documentation contains inconsistencies that would be undetectable to standard background checks but are obvious to our enhanced systems. And the Shadow Dragon gem. Elsa frowned slightly. No visible evidence, though my scanners detected energy fluctuations consistent with an actively bonded Dino gem. He's either carrying it concealed or it's been incorporated into something he wears. Mesogog's growl conveyed displeasure at the incomplete information. The ancient texts are quite specific, Elsa. The Shadow Dragon's power transcends dimensional boundaries. If this visitor has indeed bonded with it, he represents both unprecedented threat and opportunity. His cover identity claims academic interest in prehistoric combat adaptations, Elsa added. Rather convenient, considering Drive Oliver's influence. The good doctor has found himself another protege, Mesogog hissed contemplatively. How predictable. Monitor the subject closely, Elsa. I want comprehensive biometric data, behavioral patterns, and most importantly, identification of any weaknesses. And if opportunity arises to acquire him directly. Mesogog's lipless mouth curved in what might generously be called a smile. Exercise caution. The Shadow Dragon's defenders historically demonstrate unpredictable capabilities when cornered. I prefer comprehensive analysis before acquisition. Understood, my lord. As the communication ended, Elsa found herself contemplating the stranger with scientific curiosity that transcended mere obedience to Mesogog. Something about Naruto Uzumaki's energy signature suggested power unlike anything in their existing records, neither ranger energy nor conventional human biology. If harnessed properly, such power might serve purposes beyond her master's limited dinosaurian vision. A possibility worth considering, if carefully concealed from Mesogog's scrutiny. Tommy Oliver's Paleontology Classroom balanced academic rigor with engaging presentation. Fossil specimens displayed alongside interactive technology, timeline charts mapping evolutionary development adjacent to artistic renderings of prehistoric ecosystems. Students entered with varying levels of enthusiasm, though most demonstrated at least polite interest in the subject matter. Naruto observed from a designated corner, my maintaining the appearance of academic documentation while actually assessing interpersonal dynamics. The three Dino Rangers entered separately, maintaining their civilian cover by limiting interaction. Connor McKnight projected casual athletic confidence, acknowledging classmates with easy familiarity. Ethan James immediately occupied a front-row seat, technical device already activated for note-taking. Kira Ford chose a position near the window, her observant gaze belying the apparent disinterest in her posture. As Tommy began his lecture on adaptive morphology in late Cretaceous predators, Naruto found himself genuinely interested despite his reconnaissance objectives. The parallels between dinosaur evolutionary adaptations and chakra nature transformations presented intriguing conceptual overlaps. Predators developing specialized hunting techniques through environmental pressure mirrored how shinobi developed elemental affinities through training and necessity. The Dromaeosauridae family, commonly called raptors, demonstrated remarkable problem-solving capabilities alongside their physical adaptations, Tommy explained, manipulating a three-dimensional skeletal projection. The IR brain-to-body mass ratio suggests intelligence comparable to modern predatory birds, with social coordination potentially similar to contemporary pack hunters. Naruto's attention sharpened. The description matched tactical patterns in specialized Anbu hunting units, coordinated approach vectors, distraction techniques, targeted disabling of stronger prey through strategic positioning. Nature enveloping what Ninja had refined through deliberate practice. His contemplation was interrupted by a subtle vibration from his morpher-disguised watch. A quick glance confirmed what his senses had already detected: energy fluctuations suggesting possible hostile activity. The other Rangers had received the same alert, their body language shifting imperceptibly from student engagement to combat readiness. Tommy continued his lecture without obvious interruption, though Naruto noted the slight adjustment in his positioning, closer to the door, prepared for rapid exit if necessary. The practiced smoothness of the transition suggested frequent experience with mid-class emergencies. 3 minutes later, the classroom telephone rang. Tommy answered with casual professionalism, his expression revealing nothing as he listened to the message. Understood. I'll send them immediately. Hanging up, he addressed the class. Mr. McKnight, Mr. James, Ms. Ford, you're needed in the administrative office regarding the student council project. Take your materials. It may be an extended discussion. The three Rangers gathered their belongings with practiced efficiency, expressions appropriately annoyed or confused for public consumption. As they passed Naruto's observation position, Kira made brief eye contact, a silent communication confirming that the alert was legitimate. Tommy continued his lecture seamlessly, the remaining students showing no awareness of the orchestrated departure. Naruto maintained his observational pose while extending his chakra sensitivity outward, attempting to identify the disturbance source. They're northeast of campus, approximately 2 miles distant. An energy signature unlike standard human patterns, carrying distortion similar to what he'd sensed from Pterosaurus, but with distinct differences suggesting a different entity altogether. The classroom door opened quietly as a student office aide delivered a note to Tommy, who read it with a convincing show of surprise. Class, it seems I'm needed for emergency consultation at the Natural History Museum. Their paleontology curator has discovered something requiring immediate authentication. He steered toward a teaching assistant in the front row. Ms. Chen, please continue with the comparative anatomy section. Mr. Uzumaki, the museum staff requested your presence as well, given your research focus. The smooth integration of Ranger emergency response within ordinary school functions demonstrated impressive adaptability. As they exited the building toward the parking area, Tommy maintained the professional educator persona until they reached his jeep. Haley detected anomalous energy readings near the reservoir, he explained once they were underway, civilian pretense abandoned. The others are already en route. Different signature from Pterosaurus, possibly a new creation. I sensed it, Naruto confirmed. The energy pattern contains similar artificial components but with different biological base signatures. More aquatic, less reptilian. Tommy cast him a surprised glance. You can detect that level of detail from this distance. Sensory type abilities, Naruto explained. Enhanced through specialized training and, he hesitated, still cautious about revealing his Jinchuriki status, unique chakra qualities. Tommy accepted the partial explanation with a nod. That could be extremely useful for early warning systems. Our current detection technology requires proximity or significant energy discharge. As they approached the reservoir access road, Tommy activated his communicator. Haley, status update. The others arrived 2 minutes ago. Haley's voice responded through the vehicle's communication system. Humanoid aquatic creature with scale armor and hydrokinetic abilities. They're engaging now, but it's displaying unusual resistance to standard weapons. Tactical assessment. Tommy asked, accelerating as the road cleared of civilian traffic. It's not attacking randomly, Haley reported, concern evident in her tone. It's implementing systematic search patterns across the reservoir facility. Looking for something specific. Or someone, Naruto thought. Recalling Pterosaurus's immediate target acquisition upon detecting his energy signature. The timing suggested Mesogog had created this new entity specifically in response to Monday's events. We're approaching the north access point, Tommy informed Haley as the reservoir came into view below a winding cliffside road. Initiating transformation sequence. He brought T. He vehicle to a controlled stop in a concealed turnout, both men exiting rapidly. Tommy's expression turned focused as he activated his morpher. Dino Thunder, power up. Energy enveloped him, solid, affying into the Black Ranger armor with its distinctive brachio design elements. Naruto followed suit, raising his own morpher. Dino Thunder, power up. The Shadow Dragon transformation felt different from his second experience, smoother. More integrated with his chakra network. The black and purple armor materialized with liquid precision, each component syncing perfectly with his biological energy pathways. Where the first transformation had been functional, this one felt like a natural extension of his being. The gems adapting to your specific energy patterns, Tommy observed, noting He's subtle evolutionary changes in Naruto's armor design. The dragon scale pattern appeared more pronounced, and shadow energy whisked from the edges with greater control rather than raw power. It feels more integrated, Naruto confirmed as they moved toward the battle site. Less like wearing armor, more like an enhanced chakra mode. Tommy nodded, familiar with how Dino gems evolved their expressions based on bearer compatibility. The gems respond to their users, growing more attuned over time. Yours seems to be adapting particularly quickly. They crested a ridge overlooking the reservoir, gaining clear visual of the ongoing battle. The creature below stood 7 feet tall with humanoid configuration but distinctly aquatic features, scaled blue-green skin, webbed appendages, and a crested head reminiscent of prehistoric marine reptiles. Water manipulation abilities were evident as it directed pressurized streams against the Rangers with devastating force. Hydro Sauron, Tommy identified grimly. Mesogog's attempt at weaponizing plesiosaur DNA with elemental control matrices. The creature demonstrated tactical intelligence beyond mindless destruction, maintaining positio null advantage near the water's edge while systematically pushing the Rangers away from optimal attack vectors. Its movements suggested trained combat experience rather than instinctual aggression. It's hurting them, Naruto observed, recognizing the strategy from shinobi containment techniques. Creating a controlled engagement zone while maintaining terrain advantage. Agreed, Tommy responded. Let's disrupt its positioning. I'll approach from the west maintenance road. Can you create a distraction from this elevation? Naruto nodded, already forming hand seals. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 10 clones materialized alongside him, each preparing different tactical approaches. As Tommy departed toward his designated position, Naruto addressed his duplicates. Transformation patterns Alpha and Gamma. Direct attention away from the Rangers while identifying structural weaknesses. The clones acknowledged with synchronized nods before dispersing to predetermined positions. Naruto himself remained on the overlook, gathering natural energy to supplement his tactical assessment. Not full Sage mode, which might interact unpredictably with the Dragon Gem, but enough enhanced perception to identify the creature's energy circulation patterns. Below, Connor attempted another high-speed assault only to be repelled by a pressurized water shield that threw him backward into a maintenance shed. Ethan's armored form provided temporary cover for Kira, who attempted a sonic attack that dissipated ineffectively through the creature's water barrier. Rangers. Hydro Soren's voice carried across the battlefield, a gurgling. Liquid sound that nonetheless formed recognizable words. Lord Mesogog sends his regards. Surrender the dimensional traveler and his artifact, and you may yet survive this encounter. Not gonna happen. Fish face. Connor retorted, regrouping with his teammates. Your boss should know by now that we don't do surrenders. Then perhaps incentive is required, the creature responded, raising webbed appendages toward the reservoir dam. Energy pulsed from its scaled form, water responding to its command as pressure built within the containment structure. Stress fractures appeared along the concrete face, warning alarms activating throughout the facility. He's threatening the dam, Ethan realized with horror. If it breaches, half of Reefside will be underwater. Naruto's clones moved into position, the first wave launching coordinated attacks from multiple angles. Shuriken enhanced with wind nature chakra sliced through the creature's water shields, momentarily disrupting its concentration. The pressure building against the dam subsided as Hydro Sauron turned to address these new threats. The Dimensional One, it identified with evident satisfaction. Multiple manifestations, fascinating adaptation. The creature demonstrated unexpected speed, dissolving into liquid form that flowed across the terrain before resolidifying to destroy 3 clones with devastating precision. The remaining clones implemented evasive patterns, drawing the creature away from both the dam and the regrouping rangers. Naruto absorbed the tactical information from each dispersed clone, building a comprehensive understanding of the creature's capabilities. Hydrokinesis with 50-meter effective range. Liquid state transformation with rapid movement but momentary vulnerability during resolidification. Pressure manipulation requiring concentration proportional to affected water volume. Most importantly, a central power module located at the base of the skull. Visible only when channeling maximum energy. Tommy arrived at his designated position, Brachio staff already deployed. Rangers. Convergence pattern Theta. The team responded immediately, recognizing the tactical command from previous training. Connor and Ethan moved to flanking positions while Kira elevated to higher ground, preparing for coordinated assault. The synchronized movement suggests countless hours of tactical drills, impressive discipline for civilians thrust into warrior roles. Naruto activated his communicator. Dr. Oliver, the creature's power source is located at the skull base. Only exposed during maximum energy channeling. Copy that, Tommy acknowledged. Can your clones provoke that state? Affirmative. Prepare for exposure in 15 seconds. The remaining clones implemented provocation protocol, deliberately presenting threatening postures while withholding actual attacks, a psychological technique designed to trigger defensive overreaction. Hydro Sauron responded predictably, gathering water from the reservoir into a massive pressure sphere. Insignificant duplicates. The creature snarled, crested head extending as energy channeled through its skeletal structure. The skull base glowed with pulsing blue light as predicted, the power module momentarily exposed. Now, Tommy commanded. The Rangers executed perfect convergence, weapons striking simultaneously from 3 vectors. Connor's Tyranno staff impacted from the front, Ethan's Tricera shield from the right flank, Kira's Terra grips from elevated position, and Tommy's energy wave from the rear, a tetrahedral attack pattern that should have disabled any conventional opponent. Hydro Sauron merely staggered, the power module absorbing and redistributing the energy through its aquatic form. Water exploded outward in a devastating shockwave, sending all 4 rangers tumbling across the terrain. Conventional weapons ineffective, Tommy reported grimly, regaining his footing. The water matrix is dispersing impact energy. Naruto analyzed the failed attack sequence, recognizing the problem immediately. Physical and energy attacks were being converted to hydraulic dispersion, essentially using water as impact dampening. A different approach was required. Shadow Dragon, ascending, he called, activating the gem's deeper connection. Purple-black energy surged through his AR. More as the Shadow Dragon gem responded to his intent. Unlike the other Rangers' power-ups, this transformation accessed dimensional energies that transcended conventional physical limitations. Shadow coalesced around him, not as mere darkness but as tangible manifestation of space between realities. Leaping from the overlook, Naruto descended toward the battlefield with gathering momentum. As he fell, he channeled chakra through the gem-enhanced pathways, creating a Rasengan variant he'd never attempted before. Shadow Style. Dimensional Rasengan. The spiraling sphere in his palm contained not just compressed chakra but dimensional shadow energy that existed simultaneously in multiple realities. The laws of physics that allowed Hydro Soren's water manipulation applied differently to M. Matter existing partially outside conventional space-time. Hydro Sauron sensed the approaching threat, liquid form surging upward to intercept. Water barriers formed concentric defensive layers, press. You were increasing exponentially with each shell. Against conventional attacks, an impenetrable defense. Against dimensional phasing, merely an interesting obstacle. Naruto's dimensional Rasengan passed through the water barriers with minimal resistance, the shadow energy creating a pathway by temporarily shifting portions of the attack between dimensional planes. As he struck the creature's central mass, the Rasengan connected with both physical form and energy matrix simultaneously. Dimensional convergence. Naruto called as the attack detonated. The explosion manifested not as conventional force but as reality distortion, a momentary bubble where physical laws operated unpredictably. Hydro Soren's water manipulation failed catastrophically as molecules randomly phased between states of matter. Energy pathways disrupted by dimensional interference. The creature staggered backward, its liquid form destabilizing as molecular cohesion failed. The power module at its skull base flickered erratically, unable to maintain consistent energy distribution. The module is exposed. Naruto called to the Rangers. Concentrated attack now. The team responded instantly, recognizing the critical vulnerability. Rather than attacking individually, they combined weapons into the Z-Rex blaster configuration, channeling their collective energy into a single concentrated beam. Z-Rex blaster, fire. The energy beam struck the exposed module with pinpoint accuracy. Without its hydraulic defense matrix, Hydro Sauron had no protection against the concentrated attack. The module shattered in spectacular fashion, energy cascading outward as systematic failure propagated throughout the creature's form. Hydro Sauron collapsed into inert water that splashed harmlessly across the reservoir shoreline. The threat neutralized without collateral damage to the dam infrastructure. Naruto's Shadow Dragon form dispersed its dimensional enhancement, returning to standard Ranger configuration as he rejoined the team. The energy expenditure had been significant. Combining chakra manipulation with gem powers created exponentially greater drain than either system independently. That was, Connor began, searching for appropriate terminology. Completely insane, Ethan supplied, helmet tilted in evident amazement. You phased through solid matter. Not exactly, Naruto explained, his scientific understanding limited but practical experience substantial. The Shadow Dragon energy allows partial dimensional shifting, essentially moving portions of an attack through adjacent reality planes to bypass conventional defenses. Like how the Dragon Zord partially exists in multiple dimensions, Tommy realized, professional curiosity evident despite post-battle fatigue. You're channeling that same interdimensional quality through your techniques. Kira approached, her posture suggesting impressed evaluation rather than mere amazement. So you basically invented an entirely new CK by combining your chakra techniques with Ranger powers. In less than a week. Naruto shrugged slightly, the gesture visible even through his armored form. Adaptation is basic shinobi training. Assess available resources, identify tactical applications, implement under field conditions. Remind me never to visit your dimension during wartime, Connor commented with mixed admiration and concern. If everyone there thinks like you, it must be terrifying. Before conversation could continue, the familiar atmospheric disturbance began, dark clouds gathering as hydro regenerator effects initiated. The Rangers braced for inevitable escalation as rainfall targeted the defeated creature's remains. Nothing happened. The rain fell, but Hydro Soren's scattered components remained inert, showing no signs of reconstitution or enlargement. After 30 seconds of anticlimactic precipitation, the clouds dispersed as suddenly as they had formed. Okay, that's new, Ethan observed cautiously. Did we break the hydro regenerator? Tommy approached the scattered remains, scanner deployed from his morpher. The dimensional energy disrupted the genetic recovery sequencing. The hydro regenerator can't recognize the molecular structure to initiate reconstruction. Another benefit of dimensional techniques, Naruto noted, mentally cataloging the tactical advantage for future encounters. Preventing enemy reconstitution eliminated the need for Zord deployment, a significant resource conservation. Tommy's communicator activated with Haley's voice. Rangers, I'm detecting energy transmission from your location. Something's scanning the battlefield. The team immediately shifted to defensive positioning, weapons redeployed as they scanned for surveillance devices. Naruto extended his sensory perception, detecting faint energy signatures at the reservoir's perimeter, automated systems rather than living entities. Drone signatures, he reported, identifying 3 distinct sources. Unmanned observation units maintaining distance of approximately 200 meters. Non-attack configuration. Mesogog's reconnaissance drones, Tommy confirmed grimly. He's gathering data on our capabilities, specifically yours. Naruto. Let's provide him with incomplete information. Then, Naruto suggested, deactivating his ranger transformation. The others followed suit, returning to Civ. Alien form as surveillance countermeasures activated from their morphers, creating localized interference fields. As the team regrouped near Tommy's jeep, the tactical implications became clear. GOG now possessed data on the Shadow Dragon's dimensional capabilities, valuable intelligence that would inform future enemy design. Conversely, they had confirmed the effectiveness of dimensional techniques against hydrokinetic opponents and discovered immunity to hydro-regeneration effects. A tactical stalemate with slight advantage to their side, but only if they continued developing countermeasures against inevitable adaptations. We need to accelerate your training with the gem's abilities, Tommy told Naruto as they prepared to depart. If Mesogog is specifically targeting you, we need to establish comprehensive understanding of your capabilities and limitations. Agreed, Naruto nodded, tactical assessment aligning with Tommy's conclusion. The dimensional techniques require refinement. Integration with existing jutsu creates promising hybrid applications, but with significant energy consumption concerns. Translation. You need practice not passing out after one super attack. Connor interpreted with surprising accuracy. Essentially, Naruto acknowledged, respecting the Red Ranger's tactical awareness beneath his casual demeanor. In my dimension, chakra exhaustion represents significant vulnerability. Here, combining chakra with gem energy creates exponential rather than additive drain. We'll start this afternoon, Tommy decided. The command center has Simula Chion capabilities that should allow controlled testing without alerting Mesogog's detection systems. As they departed the reservoir, Naruto found himself walking alongside Kira toward the vehicles. Her expression suggested analytical thought rather than casual conversation. That attack you used, she began after a moment, it wasn't just physical, was it? I felt something different when it detonated. Like reality itself rippled. Quote, Naruto studied her with renewed interest. That she had perceived the dimensional distortion suggested sensitivity beyond standard human perception, possibly related to her Dino gem connection. You're right, he confirmed. The dimensional phasing creates temporary discontinuities in local space-time. Most people perceive it as disorientation or visual distortion, but you actually sense the reality fluctuation itself. Is that normal? She asked, genuine curiosity replacing analytical distance. In my experience, only those with specialized training or natural sensitivity to chakra can detect such effects, Naruto explained. Your Dino gem may have enhanced your perceptual capabilities beyond standard parameters. Kira considered this with thoughtful attention. So I'm becoming more sensitive to energy patterns. That could be useful for detection and warning systems. Potentially, Naruto agreed, impressed by her immediate focus on tactical applications rather than personal concerns. With proper training, sensory abilities can extend significant advantages in both combat and reconnaissance operations. A slight smile curved her lips. Are you offering to train me? Shadow Dragon Ranger. The teasing question carried genuine interest beneath its surface, not merely casual conversation but potential collaboration between teammates with complementary abilities. Naruto found himself responding to both the tactical opportunity and the personal connection it represented. If Dr. Oliver approves, he replied with matching lightness. I'd be honored to share sensory techniques with a fellow warrior. Her smile widened fractionally, amber eyes reflecting appreciation for his formal phrasing. I'll hold you to that, ninja boy. As they rejoined the others, Naruto found himself considering how quickly he'd integrated with this team despite dimensional differences. The Rangers operated with different protocols and technologies than shinobi forces. But their core commitment to protection and justice transcended such distinctions. Perhaps dimensional displacement wasn't solely misfortune after all. Haley's technical expertise manifested in the command center's simulation systems, a training environment featuring adaptive holographic opponents and energy monitoring equipment that would impress even the most advanced research divisions in Konoha. The afternoon session focused on measuring the interaction between Naruto's chakra system and the Shadow Dragon gem's dimensional energy. The readings are extraordinary, Haley reported, monitoring display screens as Naruto executed a series of increasingly complex techniques. Your chakra naturally resonates with the gem's frequency, creating harmonic amplification rather than mere additive effects. Naruto completed a shadow clone sequence enhanced with dimensional energy, the duplicates demonstrating partial phasing capabilities that standard clones lacked. The gem seems to respond to intent rather than specific chakra molding. When I visualize dimensional effects, it translates that concept into practical application. That's consistent with how our gems function, Tommy observed from a nearby monitoring station. They interpret the user's needs and fighting style, adapting their expression accordingly. Ethan, who had remained after school to observe the testing, whistled appreciatively as the shadow clones demonstrated phasing through solid barriers. Man, the tactical applications are insane. Imagine infiltration capabilities with partially phased clones. The energy consumption remains problematic, Naruto noted, dismissing the clones as monitoring equipment registered his decreasing chakra levels. Each dimensionally enhanced technique requires approximately 3 times standard chakra expenditure. Sustainability in prolonged engagement scenarios would be challenging. Your baseline energy reserves are substantially higher than any readings we've recorded from Rangers, Haley noted, displaying comparative charts. Even with increased consumption rates, your operational capacity exceeds standard parameters by significant margins. That may be related to my unique circumstances, Naruto acknowledged carefully, still cautious about revealing his Jinchuriki status without fuller understanding of this world's context for such concepts. Tommy seemed to sense the deliberate omission but didn't press for details. Let's focus on practical applications. The dimensional phasing showed effectiveness against Hydro Soren's defenses. We should explore which other enemy configurations might be vulnerable to similar approaches. The training continued with systematic evaluation of dimensional techniques against emulated opponents based on previous Mesogog creations. Naruto found the analytical approach reminiscent of Konoha's tactical development protocols, identifying enemy vulnerabilities, optimizing resource allocation, establishing contingencies for various engagement scenarios. After 2 hours of intensive testing, Haley called a halt as monitoring systems registered concerning energy depletion. You need to rest and recover. The gem is adapting to your energy patterns, but forced synchronization risks destabilization. Naruto nodded, recognizing the wisdom in controlled development rather than immediate maximization. Chakra pathways required time to accommodate new energy types, just as physical training demanded recovery periods between sessions. We've gathered sufficient baseline data, Tommy agreed. Reviewing the compiled results, Haley can analyze the interaction patterns while you recover. Tomorrow we'll focus on integrating your dimensional techniques with team combat formations. As the session concluded, Naruto found himself appreciating the methodical approach these Rangers brought to power development. Despite their civilian backgrounds, they demonstrated discipline and analytical rigor that many shinobi academies would respect. One more thing before you go, Haley mentioned, bringing up a separate display. I've been researching potential connections between your chakra system and our morphin grid. The resonance patterns suggest fascinating theoretical overlap. The display showed comparative energy analyses, chakra pathways mapped alongside morphin grid connection points. The similarities were indeed striking, despite originating from entirely different dimensional frameworks. Both systems appear to access universal energy through individualized biological interfaces, Haley explained, highlighting connection nodes that appeared in both systems. Your chakra network developed through evolutionary processes in your dimension, while our morphin grid connections are technologically facilitated, but the underlying energy principles show remarkable consistency. Suggesting a common origin point, Tommy concluded, professional fascination evident in his expression. Perhaps all dimensions evolved from unified energy states that subsequently differentiated through isolated development. Or intentional design across multiple realities, Ethan suggested. Like how different programming languages can produce similar functional outputs despite structural differences. Naruto considered the implications with thoughtful attention. In my world, sages believe all chakra originated from a single divine tree that connected dimensions. These similarities might support that creation mythology. Mythology often contains kernels of scientific truth, Haley noted. I'd like to continue this research. It might provide insights into stabilizing interdimensional transit for your eventual return journey. The mention of returning home Elichi. Ted complex emotions Naruto had been carefully managing since his arrival. While adaptation to this dimension proceeded effectively, his responsibilities to Konoha remained paramount in his considerations. I would appreciate that, he acknowledged simply. As they prepared to depart the command center, Tommy's communicator activated with Kira's voice. Doctor. Oh, we might have a situation at Haley's cyberspace. What kind of situation? Tommy responded immediately, tension returning to his posture. Principal Randall just arrived, Kira reported, keeping her voice low. She's asking questions about our international guest, and seems particularly interested in whether he'll be making an appearance today. Tommy and Naruto exchanged significant looks, both recognizing the implications. Elsa was pursuing information in her civilian identity. It suggested prioritization of intelligence gathering over direct confrontation. We'll be there in 15 minutes, Tommy replied. Maintai, end normal behavior patterns and avoid discussing anything Ranger-related. Already on it, Kira confirmed before disconnecting. Could be coincidence, Ethan suggested without conviction. Principal Randall doesn't do coincidence. Tommy responded grimly. Everything she does serves Mesogog's objectives. Or possibly her own, Naruto observed, recalling subtle discrepancies in her behavior patterns during their morning interaction. Her questions showed personal curiosity beyond simple mission parameters. Tommy considered this assessment with evident interest. You picked up on that after one meeting. Interrogation resistance training includes recognizing motivational inconsistencies in questioning patterns, Naruto explained. Her approach contained elements of both assigned intelligence gathering and personal investigation. Suggesting potential leverage, Tommy realized, tactical implications immediately apparent. If Elsa's developing independent interests beyond Mesogog's directives, it presents both opportunity and complication, Naruto completed the thought. But requires verification before operational planning. Haley shook her head slightly, a wry smile playing at her lips. You two are terrifying when you start thinking tactically. Remind me never to play chess against either of you. Speaking of tactical thinking, Ethan interjected, shouldn't we be developing a cover story for why Naruto would naturally be at the cyberspace cafe? If Randall's fishing for information, we should control what she catches. Good point, Tommy acknowledged. Suggestions. Cultural research. Naruto offered immediately. My cover identity includes studying local youth social structures. A popular gathering location provides natural observation opportunities. Plus Haley's cyberspace has the best smoothies in Reefside, Ethan added with a grin. International research requires thorough investigation of local cuisine, right? The light moment broke the tension momentarily, reminding Naruto that despite their impressive tactical capabilities, these Rangers balanced warrior responsibilities with normal lives, an integration he had rarely achieved during his own tumultuous development. Let's move, Tommy directed, gathering his materials. And remember, Elsa is dangerous precisely because she's intelligent. Give her plausible information, nothing more. Haley's cyberspace represented youth culture distilled into architectural form. Modern technology blended with comfortable gathering spaces, productivity zones adjacent to entertainment areas. Refreshments supporting both social interaction and individual focus. The establishment hummed with after-school energy as teenagers occupied various zones according to their interests and social alignments. Naruto entered alongside Tommy and Ethan, maintaining the observational demeanor appropriate to his cover identity while conducting actual reconnaissance. Principal Randall occupied a corner table, tablet computer positioned before her as she surveyed the environment with calculated casualness. Her business attire stood out among the casual student population, creating natural social distance that served both her civilian and covert personas. Kira performed on a small stage area, acoustic guitar accompanying vocals that demonstrated impressive technical control and emotional expressiveness. Her performance provided perfect cover for surveillance while maintaining her established civilian identity as a musician. Dr. Oliver, Randall acknowledged as they approached the counter. Expanding your educational purview beyond school hours. How dedicated. Principal Randall, Tommy responded with professional courtesy. Just introducing our international guest to local cultural establishments. Mr. Uzumaki's research includes social development patterns among contemporary youth. Randall's assessing gaze shifted to Naruto, surface politeness barely concealing analytical scrutiny. How fortuitous. I was just considering whether your research might benefit from observation of extracurricular social environments, Mr. Uzumaki. Great minds think alike, Principal Randall. Naruto replied with measured friendliness. Understanding educational systems requires context beyond formal classroom structures. Indeed, she agreed, gesturing toward an empty chair at her table. Perhaps you might share your initial impressions. As an administrator, I find outside perspective valuable for potential improvements. The invitation represented both opportunity and risk, engaging directly with a known enemy operative while maintaining plausible civilian interaction. Naruto calculated potential information exchange ratios before accepting with a polite nod. I'd be honored to contribute to your administrative considerations. As Tommy and Ethan moved toward the counter with appropriate casualness, Naruto joined Randall at her table, maintaining relaxed body language despite heightened alertness. The principal closed her tablet with deliberate precision, focusing her complete attention on him, an interrogation technique disguised as professional interest. Your educational system differs significantly from my country's approach, Naruto began, offering genuinely considered observations that maintained his cover identity. The emphasis on individual expression alongside standardized assessment creates interesting developmental tensions. How diplomatic, Randall responded with subtle amusement. Most international observers simply call our system contradictory or inefficient. Different objectives require different methodologies, Naruto countered smoothly. Efficiency depends entirely on desired outcomes. And what outcomes do you value, Mr. Uzumaki? The question carried layered meaning beneath its surface simplicity. Balance, he answered truthfully, though contextualized for his cover identity. Between tradition and innovation. Between individual potential and collective advancement. Between power and responsibility. Something flickered in Randall's expression, recognition or perhaps reassessment. Admirable philosophical perspective. Though I find many who speak of balance actually mean stagnation, maintaining comfortable equilibrium rather than pursuing necessary evolution. The statement contained revealing ideological elements consistent with Mesogog's evolutionary agenda, yet phrased in terms suggesting personal conviction rather than assigned talking points. Interesting. Evolution without purpose becomes merely change for its own sake, Naruto responded. Deliberately engaging the philosophical opening. Direction matters as much as movement. Randall leaned forward slightly, professional administrator persona momentarily overshadowed by genuine intellectual engagement. And who determines that direction, Mr. Uzumaki? In your philosophical framework, those with both wisdom and compassion, he replied without hesitation. Power without either becomes tyranny. Wisdom without compassion becomes cold calculation. Compassion without wisdom becomes destructive enablement. Her eyes narrowed fractionally, assessing rather than dismissing his response. You speak like someone who has witnessed the consequences of power misapplied. As has anyone who studies history with attention, Naruto deflected, maintaining cover identity while acknowledging the underlying truth of her observation. His experiences with Pain, Madara, and Kagaya had indeed demonstrated the catastrophic potential of power divorced from wisdom and compassion. Their philosophical exchange continued with subtle probing questions from Randall and measured responses from Naruto, each evaluating the other's intelligence and perspective. While maintaining plausible civilian conversation. The interaction confirmed his initial assessment. Elsa possessed intellectual depth and independent thought patterns beyond simple subordinate status. From the small performance stage, Kira concluded her set with polite acknowledgement of audience appreciation. As she descended toward the main floor, her path took her past their table, a tactical approach disguised as casual movement. Principal Randall, she greeted with appropriate student deference. I didn't expect to see you here. Did you enjoy the performance? Ms. Ford, Randall acknowledged coolly. Your musical abilities continue to develop, though your lyrical themes remain somewhat derivative of established genres. The criticism contained professional assessment rather than personal attack, an interesting distinction that suggested Randall maintained educational standards even within her cover identity. I'll take that as encouragement to explore new creative directions. Kira responded with admirable composure. As you should, Randall agreed with surprising sincerity. Talent requires challenge to develop meaningful distinction. The interaction provided BLE insight into Randall's character complexity. Her critical assessment reflected genuine educational philosophy rather than merely maintaining cover. This dimensional counterpart to Konoha's deep COV. Operatives demonstrated impressive commitment to her established identity. Mr. Uzumaki has been sharing fascinating perspectives on educational methodologies, Randall continued, smoothly integrating Kira into the conversation. Perhaps you might offer student perspective on our discussions. The invitation served multiple purposes: gathering additional information, observing interaction patterns between Naruto and Kira, and potentially identifying inconsistencies in their respective narratives. Subtle but effective intelligence-gathering technique. I'd be happy to contribute, Kira agreed, taking the offered seat while maintaining appropriate student-administrator dynamics. Though I should warn you that my perspective tends toward the creatively critical. Precisely why it holds value. Randall responded with that same surprising sincerity. Conformist perspectives rarely generate meaningful improvement. The three-way conversation continued with remarkable intellectual stance considering its covert information-gathering purpose. Randall demonstrated genuine educational expertise alongside calculated probing, while Kira balanced authentic student perspective with careful avoidance of Ranger-related topics. Naruto maintained his cover identity while evaluating Randall's complex motivational patterns. After 20 minutes of substantive discussion, Randall checked her watch with apparent reluctance. Fascinating as this exchange has been, administrative responsibilities await. The paperwork burden remains evolution's greatest failure. As she gathered her materials, she addressed Naruto directly. I hope you'll document your observations thoroughly, Mr. Uzumaki. Perspective from other worlds often illuminates blind spots in established systems. Deliberate word choice confirmed her knowledge of his dimensional origin, a calculated revelation demonstrating information possession while leaving ambiguous how much else she knew. Impressive psychological leverage technique. I appreciate your insights, Principal Randall, Naruto responded with equal precision. Different perspectives expand possibilities beyond conventional limitations. Our slight smile acknowledged the verbal chess match before she departed with professional efficiency, leaving Naruto and Kira to exchange significant glances once she had exited the establishment. She knows, Kira confirmed unnecessarily, keeping her voice low despite the ambient noise. But she was also genuinely engaged in the educational discussion. It's confusing. People rarely conform to singular motivational patterns, Naruto observed, experience with complex enemy psychology informing his assessment. Her identity as Principal Randall has developed depth beyond mere cover functionality. You think she's developing independent of Mesogog's influence? Kira questioned, grasping the implications immediately. Possible, Naruto acknowledged, though whether that represents tactical opportunity or increased threat complexity remains undetermined. Kira considered this with thoughtful attention. Dr. O needs to hear about this. The philosophical discussion wasn't just cover. She was expressing genuine perspectives that don't align with Mesogog's "Dinosaurs Rule, Humans Drool" manifesto. Naruto nodded, impressed by her analytical perception. Agreed. The ideological inconsistency suggests potential fracture points in enemy command structure. Kira's expression shifted slightly, amusement replacing tactical focus. You could just say, she might be having econ thoughts about working for a dinosaur dictator. I could, Naruto acknowledged with a hint of answering humor. But precision in intelligence assessment reduces misinterpretation risk. And, here I thought ninja were all about jumping from trees and throwing stars, she teased, deliberately lightening the moment. Common misconception, Naruto responded, allowing himself to relax only now that immediate surveillance had ended. Effective shinobi spend more time gathering intelligence than engaging in direct combat. So what intelligence did you gather about me while I was performing? Kira asked, curiosity evident beneath the casual question. Naruto considered how to respond appropriately. His automatic analytical assessment had indeed cataloged numerous details about her performance style, audience engagement patterns, and technical proficiency, but sharing such observations might seem invasively observant in this social context. Your music contains emotional authenticity that resonates beyond technical proficiency, he finally offered. You perform not merely to be heard but to communicate something meaningful. Kira's expression suggested she hadn't expected such perception. That's actually exactly what I aim for. Most people just say they like the beat or whatever. The technical components serve the emotional intent, Naruto elaborated, finding G himself genuinely interested in the artistic parallel to combat techniques. Like how chakra control serves jutsu purpose rather than existing for its own sake. You compare everything to ninja training, don't you? She observed, though her tone held fascination rather than criticism. It's my primary reference framework, Naruto acknowledged with slight self-deprecation. 16 years of shinobi training tends to shape perspective. 16 years, Kira repeated, surprise evident. How old were you when you started? 4, officially, Naruto answered. Though practical survival training began earlier due to unusual circumstances, he hadn't intended to reveal personal history, but something about Kira's direct engagement bypassed his usual conversational filters. Perhaps distance from his home dimension created false sense of security, or maybe her genuine interest invited reciprocal openness. Her expression shifted to one of concerned assessment rather than casual curiosity. That's incredibly young to begin military training. Standard procedure in the elemental nations, Naruto explained, though seeing it through her perspective highlighted cultural differences he'd rarely considered. Though reforms after the Fourth Shinobi War have modified early education approaches. War, she repeated softly. You mentioned that before. You've actually fought in a war. The question contained no judgment, merely attempt to understand experiences beyond her frame of reference. Naruto found himself appreciating her direct approach rather than the careful avenue. I dance many displayed when confronting uncomfortable realities. Yes, he confirmed simply. A global conflict with existential stakes. We prevailed, but at significant cost. Kira absorbed this thoughtful consideration rather than shocked response. That explains a lot about how you operate. The tactical thinking, the calm under pressure, the way you naturally took command during the reservoir battle. Experience shapes response patterns, Naruto acknowledged. Though the Rangers demonstrate impressive adaptation to combat realities despite civilian backgrounds. Some more than others, Kira noted with slight self-criticism. Connor's sports background translated well to tactical scenarios. Ethan's gaming experience provided strategic foundations. I mostly just tried not to act out while figuring things out on the fly. Yet you developed effective combat capabilities regardless, Naruto observed. Adaptation capacity often matters more than prior training. Their conversation continued with surprising depth, shifting between tactical assessments and personal perspectives with natural rhythm that Naruto found unexpectedly comfortable. Unlike many interactions in his home dimension, where his status as Jinchuriki and war hero created social distance, Kira engaged with him as an individual rather than a symbol, refreshing in its normalcy despite their abnormal circumstances. When Tommy eventually signaled time to depart, Naruto realized they had spent over an hour in conversation that had transitioned from mission-relevant information exchange to genuine interpersonal connection. An unplanned but not unwelcome development. As they prepared to leave, Kira touched his arm briefly, casual human contact that nonetheless registered prominently in his awareness. Training session tomorrow after school. You promised to share some sensory techniques, remember? If Dr. Oliver approves, Naruto confirmed, finding himself looking forward to the collaboration beyond mere tactical advantage. I'll handle drive. Oh, she assured him with confident smile. Besides, enhanced sensory capability provides tactical team advantage. He can't argue with that logic. Her strategic framing of personal interest as mission-relevant capability development demonstrated impressive persuasive intelligence. Naruto found himself respecting both the tactical mind and the authentic personality behind it, a dangerous combination in any dimension. Until tomorrow, then, he agreed, returning her smile with one of his own, perhaps the most genuine expression he'd allowed himself since arriving in this dimension. As they departed Haley's cyberspace, Tommy raised a questioning eyebrow at their interaction but limited his comment to practical logistics. "We'll continue power integration testing tomorrow morning. Haley's analyzing today's results to establish baseline parameters for team combination techniques. I look forward to it," Naruto responded sincerely, finding unexpected satisfaction in this temporary team assignment despite his continued commitment to returning home. The Shadow Dragon's choice of bearer across dimensions remained mysterious, but perhaps not entirely misguided after all. From her observation position across the street, Elsa contemplated the interaction patterns she'd witnessed with scientific curiosity that transcended mere mission parameters. The dimensional visitor demonstrated complexity beyond initial assessment, tactical intelligence and combat capability alongside philosophical depth and interpersonal adaptability. More interesting still were the developing connections between Uzumaki and the Rangers, particularly the Yellow Ranger. Their interaction patterns suggested emergent interpersonal dynamics beyond tactical alliance, potentially exploitable vulnerability, yet also indicative of integration that might enhance their collective combat effectiveness. As she activated her teleportation device to return to Mesogog's fortress, Elsa found herself contemplating alternative interpretations of evolution and advancement that diverged from her master's singular vision. The philosophical exchange with Uzumaki had mulated intellectual pathways long subordinated to Mesogog's directives. Balance between tradition and innovation. Between individual potential and collective advancement. Between power and responsibility. Intriguing concepts that warranted further examination, though carefully concealed from Mesogog's scrutiny until their strategic implications became clearer. After all, true evolution required adaptation to changing conditions rather than rigid adherence to predetermined patterns. Perhaps Mesogog's vision represented merely one evolutionary possibility rather than inevitable destination. A dangerous thought, but increasingly difficult to dismiss. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Echoes of Home. Dreams offered no sanctuary. Night after night, Naruto found himself walking Konoha's streets. So vivid he could smell Ichiraku's ramen broth wafting through the evening air, hear children's laughter echoing from the academy playground, feel the familiar texture of the Hokage monument beneath his feet as he gazed over the village. Then invariably, the dream would fracture, reality splintering like glass as he awakened to the unfamiliar ceiling of Tommy Oliver's guest room, moonlight casting alien shadows across walls that held no history for him. This particular morning, he'd given up on sleep before dawn, slipping silently from the house to meditate in the surrounding forest. Woodland. Creatures observed the strange human with curious caution as he settled into lotus position atop a moss-covered boulder. 3 weeks in this dimension had established certain routines, morning meditation to center his chakra, careful monitoring of the dimensional energy fluctuations around the Shadow Dragon gem, and systematic adaptation to this world's technologies and social patterns. Dew damp, and his clothing as mist curled between ancient trees. Dawn slowly transformed the forest from monochrome shadows to vibrant color, revealing autumn foliage that reminded him painfully of Fire Country's western provinces. The ache of displacement never quite subsided, merely receded temporarily during combat or training, when purpose provided distraction from loss. "Thought I might find you out here." Naruto didn't startle at Tommy's approach. He'd sensed the Black Ranger's chakra signature, or this dimension's equivalent energy, minutes earlier. Opening his eyes, he acknowledged his host with a slight nod. "Hope I didn't wake you when I left." Tommy shook his head, settling on a nearby fallen log with the ease of someone accustomed to early mornings in natural settings. "I've been a raw-inger long enough to develop light sleeping habits. Comes with the territory." Comfortable silence stretched between them, the mutual understanding of warriors who respected personal space. Eventually, Tommy spoke again, his tone conversational rather than prying. "Bad dreams." Naruto considered deflecting the question but found himself answering honestly. "Not bad. Just home." Tommy nodded, understanding immediately. "Dimensional displacement dreams. I've had them myself, though not quite on your scale." Time in the green dimension, pocket universes, alternative timelines, they all leave marks on your subconscious. This revelation surprised Naruto. Despite extensive briefings on Ranger history, he hadn't fully appreciated the depth of Tommy's interdimensional experiences. You've traveled between dimensions before. Several times, though never with the permanence you're experiencing, Tommy clarified. Brief excursions rather than full relocation. Still, I remember the disorientation. The constant background hum of wrongness that never quite goes away. Like trying to breathe underwater, Naruto offered quietly. Everything functions, but nothing feels natural. Exactly. Tommy studied the brightening forest with thoughtful attention. It gets better, you know. Not gone, but manageable. Your mind eventually accepts the new normal while still preserving what matters from before. The assessment aligned with Naruto's shinobi training on long-term deep cover operations, mental compartmentalization allowing function without compromising core identity. Still, theoretical understanding provided limited emotional comfort. Haley's making progress on analyzing the dimensional rift signatures, Tommy continued after another comfortable silence. The Shadow Drago, N-Gem's connection to multiple realities might eventually provide a pathway home, once we understand the mechanics better. Naruto nodded, appreciating both the practical update and the implicit acknowledgement of his ultimate objective. Despite growing connections to this world and its defenders, returning to Konoha remained his primary goal, a fact Tommy respected without requiring constant verbalization. Training session at the command center this morning? Naruto asked, shifting toward operational matters as the sun cleared the eastern ridge. Actually, I was thinking we might try something different today, Tommy replied. His expression suggesting consideration rather than casual suggestion. The technical approach has yielded valuable data, but we're missing something important. Which is context, Tommy explained. The Rangers have combat logs and mission reports, but they don't truly understand your world or what you've lost. And you're fighting alongside people who are essentially strangers. Despite shared battlefield experience, Naruto considered this assessment with professional attention. The tactical logic was sound, team cohesion improved with mutual understanding. And operating in unfamiliar cultural context created inefficiencies that could prove dangerous in combat situations. What do you suggest? Cultural exchange, Tommy answered simply. You shish. Our stories and knowledge about your world, we provide deeper context about ours. Beyond the tactical briefings and technical specifications. The suggestion triggered complex emotions Naruto had carefully managed since his arrival. Speaking about Konoha meant acknowledging its absence, transforming abstract displacement into concrete loss. Yet compartmentalization created its own risks, emotional distance that might compromise integration with his temporary team. I'm not much of a storyteller, he demurred, discomfort manifesting as self-deprecation. Tommy's expression suggested he recognized the deflection but wouldn't force the issue. Think about it. The offer stands whenever you're ready. He stood, stretching casually. Haley's bringing breakfast to the command center. Training starts in an hour. As Tommy departed, Naruto remained on his meditation stone, considering the proposal with mixed emotions. Perhaps controlled disclosure might indeed serve both tactical and personal objectives. The Rangers had demonstrated trustworthiness through consistent actions rather than mere declarations, a standard shinobi valued above verbal assurances. Decision made, he rose and began the trek back to the house. The forest seemed slightly less alien than before, familiar patterns emerging from initially chaotic impressions, adaptation in progress, however incomplete. The command Enter hummed with morning activity when Naruto arrived. Haley occupied her customary position at the primary monitoring station, multiple displays showing energy analyses and simulation projections. Tommy reviewed training protocols while Ethan configured holographic combat scenarios. Connor manipulated three-dimensional tactical projections with surprising precision for someone who projected casual disinterest in technical matters. Hira noticed his arrival first, offering a steaming mug as he approached. Morning, Ninja Boy, you look like you could use this. The coffee, prepared exactly as he preferred after weeks of observation, represented the small adaptations that gradually transformed strangers into teammates. Such minor considerations often revealed more about potential allies than grand declarations or formal agreements. Thanks, he acknowledged, accepting both beverage and implicit support. The gesture reinforced his earlier decision regarding Tommy's proposal. As the team gathered for the morning briefing, Naruto set his mug aside and addressed the group with uncharacteristic hesitation. "Before we begin training, I'd like to accept Oliver's suggestion about cultural exchange." The Rangers exchanged surprised glances. His previous responses to personal questions had been politely minimal, tactical information freely shared while biographical details remained carefully bounded. "You sure?" Tommy asked, offering implicit permission to reconsider. Naruto nodded, decision crystallizing into certainty. "Understanding improves coordination. You should know what kind of world produced the shinobi you're fighting alongside." The team settled into attentive positions, technical preparations temporarily suspended as Naruto gathered his thoughts. Beginning proved more challenging than anticipated. How to distill an entire dimensional culture into coherent narrative without overwhelming detail or insufficient context. "The elemental nations," he began finally, "are divided primarily by geographic features and chakra affinities. Fire country, wind country, earth, lightning, and water, each with corresponding hidden villages where shinobi train from childhood to harness chakra according to their natural elemental alignments." The explanation continued with increasing confidence, covering basic political structures, shinobi organizational systems, and historical developments that shaped his world's current configuration. The Rangers listened with evident fascination, occasionally asking clarifying questions that demonstrated genuine interest rather than mere politeness. "So you're from Konoha, the Hidden Leaf village in Fire Country," Ethan summarized. "And you were training to potentially become Hokage, the military leader of your entire village." "That was my goal since childhood," Naruto confirmed, momentarily transported by memories of his younger self's loud declarations. "Though the path proved more complicated than I initially understood. Because of the 9 tails," Hira said quietly, referencing his earlier careful explanation of the biju sealed within him during infancy. Her expression held neither fear nor pity, merely UGHTFUL comprehension of how such circumstances would shape a person's development. "Partly," Naruto acknowledged, "being a Jinchuriki created social complications. But also because becoming Hokage requires more than just power or determination. It demands wisdom, strategic thinking, and the ability to make impossible choices for the greater good. Like sending people you care about into danger," Tommy observed with the quiet certainty of someone who had made such decisions himself. "Exactly." Naruto appreciated the understanding that required no elaborate explanation. "After the Fourth Shinobi War, I realized those qualities developed through experience rather than training or natural talent. I still have much to learn." "Fourth War?" Connor questioned, tactical mind immediately focusing on the military implications. "How many wars has your world had?" 4 global conflicts involving all major nations, plus countless smaller regional disputes, Naruto explained. The Fourth War was different, though. The first time all shinobi villages united against a common enemy that threatened not just political structures but existence itself. This prompted further questions about the nature of the conflict, requiring careful explanation of Madara, the infinite Tsukuyomi, and Kagaya's dimensional manipulations without overwhelming them with excessive detail. Throughout the explanation, Naruto found himself revealing more than initially intended, not just tactical information but personal experiences that shaped his perspective and abilities. "So you personally fought this Madara guy?" Connor asked, impressed despite his attempt at casual response. "The immortal legendary ninja who could literally drop meteors on battlefields. Alongside many others," Naruto clarified, comfortable with individual credit for what had been fundamentally collaborative victory. Teamwork proved essential against enemies of that caliber. "Still," Ethan interjected, "the power scaling in your dimension is intense. Makes our monster battles seem almost manageable by comparison." "Different challenges require different solutions," Naruto responded diplomatically. "Your team has protected this world effectively long before my arrival. But with far more property damage," Haley noted with dry humor, momentarily lightening the serious atmosphere. "Insurance companies would appreciate your precise targeting capabilities." The comment triggered unexpected laughter, tension release after heavy historical recounting. Naruto found himself smiling despite the emotional complexity of discussing his absent world. I've shared enough about the elemental nations, he concluded as conversation naturally paused. We should proceed with scheduled training. Actually, Tommy interjected, I think this context provides perfect opportunity to test integration of your specific techniques with ranger operations. The Shadow Dragon gem adapts to your natural fighting style, underst. Anding your background helps us predict and support those adaptations. The training session that followed demonstrated the wisdom in Tommy's approach. With improved understanding of chakra principles and shinobi tactical frameworks, the Rangers adapted their formations to complement Naruto's techniques rather than simply accommodating them as foreign elements. Combat simulations showed measurable efficiency improvements as they incorporated this deeper contextual knowledge. Let's test multiple clone integration, Tommy suggested as basic drills concluded successfully. Your shadow clone Chinique seems particularly adaptable to ranger combat scenarios. Naruto nodded, moving to the center of the training area. Standard shadow clones first, then we can progress to more specialized applications. How many can you create in normal combat conditions? Ethan asked, adjusting monitoring equipment to capture the demonstration. Depends on mission parameters and chakra conservation requirements, Naruto explained, preparing the necessary hand seal. For standard engagement scenarios, 20 to 30 provides tactical flexibility without excessive energy expenditure. Without further preamble, he channeled chakra through the familiar pathway. Shadow Clone Jutsu. The command center suddenly contained 30 perfect duplicates of Naruto, not illusions or projections but physically manifested entities with independent consciousness and substantial durability. They arranged themselves in tactical formation automatically, awaiting direction from the original. The Rangers Street. ARED in undisguised amazement despite previous exposure to the technique on a smaller scale. Seeing it implemented at full combat capacity within the confined space of the command center rendered the ability's true potential unmistakable. Holy, Connor breathed, Warrior's assessment immediately calculating tactical applications. You could literally surround any enemy completely. Create instant numerical superiority in any engagement. They're all solid, independent entities. Haley questioned, monitoring equipment registering multiple distinct energy signatures rather than projections from a single source. With autonomous decision-making capabilities. Within parameters, Naruto confirmed. They share my consciousness and knowledge but can operate independently once created. When dispersed, their experiences transfer back to me, useful for reconnaissance and simultaneous training applications. Training applications? Kira asked, curious despite her evident awe at the technique's scale. Naruto gestured to one clone, who stepped forward to explain. If I create 100 clones to practice a technique for 1 hour, I gain the equivalent of 100 hours of training experience when they disperse. That's how you mastered Sage Mode in weeks rather than years, Tommy realized, connecting this information with previous explanations of nature energy manipulation. And the Rasengan variations. Exactly. Both Naruto and his clone confirmed simultaneously before the original continued alone. Though physical conditioning can't be accelerated the same way, each clone develops muscle memory. But physical strength gains don't transfer back to the original body. Still, the learning applications alone are revolutionary, Ethan observed, scientific mind immediate. Lee identifying potential beyond combat scenarios. You could literally learn multiple subjects simultaneously, or master complex skills in fraction of normal timeframes. With corresponding chakra expenditure, Naruto cautioned. Creating and maintaining multiple clones requires substantial energy investment, especially when they operate at significant distances from the original. What's your maximum capacity? Tommy asked, professional assessment rather than idle curiosity. Under optimal conditions, Naruto hesitated briefly before answering truthfully. Several thousand, though mainta. Eyeing that number for extended periods isn't practical outside specific tactical scenarios. The Rangers exchanged shocked glances, military implications immediately apparent. Such numerical cation represented combat potential beyond conventional assessment frameworks, a one-person army in literal rather than figurative terms. Several thousand, Connor repeated, tactical mind visibly recalibrating previous assumptions. As in, multiple thousands of independently operating solid duplicates. The technique scales with chakra capacity, Naruto explained, somewhat uncomfortable with their evident amazement. As Jinchuriki, my reserves substantially exceed standard parameters. You could literally fill this entire mountain with clones, Ethan realized, gesturing toward the surrounding cavern system. Take over a small country if you wanted to. Which is exactly why responsibility matters more than power, Naruto responded quietly. Capability without ethical framework becomes merely destructive potential. His statement silenced further speculation, the seriousness of his tone conveying deeper meaning than the words alone. The clones dispersed in synchronized puffs of smoke, returning the command center to its normal occupancy level. The shadow clone technique represents just one application of chakra manipulation, he continued more formally. Each shinobi develops specialized techniques aligned with their natural affinities and strategic requirements. My particular skill set evolved to complement team operations within Konoha's defensive framework. Why integration with Ranger operations feels natural despite dimensional differences, Tommy observed insightfully. Your foundational training emphasized teamwork rather than solo heroics. Exactly, Naruto confirmed, appreciating the perceptive analysis. Individual capabilities serve collective objectives, similar to how each ranger contributes specialized functions to team operations. Except most of us can't create personal armies, Connor noted with wry humor, tension dissipating as the conversation returned to practical training considerations. We each have our strengths, Naruto responded, matching the lighter tone. I can't move at super speed or generate sonic screams. Speaking of specialized abilities, Tommy interjected, consulting the training schedule, we shall test how your Sage mode interacts with Ranger transformation. Haley's analysis suggests potential resonance between nature energy and the Morphin grid. Naruto considered the proposal carefully. Previous testing had focused on standard chakra techniques rather than Sage mode's specialized energy manipulation. The interaction between nature energy and dimensional power remained theoretical rather than practically confirmed. Potential risks, he asked, shinobi caution automatically assessing worst-case scenarios. Energy cascade failure, dimensional instability, temporary power neutralization, Haley listed matter-of-factly. Reviewing simulation projections, but probability models suggest beneficial integration is more likely than catastrophic interaction. That's reassuring, Kira commented with gentle sarcasm, though her expression remained supportive rather than critical. Maybe start with minimal power levels rather than full transformation. Agreed, Tommy nodded. Rolled implementation with incremental power increases. Ethan, adjust the containment field to maximum stability protocols. As technical preparations proceeded, Naruto centered himself through measured breathing. Sage mode required perfect balance between internal chakra and external nature energy, a delicate equilibrium that dimensional factors might disrupt in unpredictable ways. Yet without practical testing, theoretical concerns remained merely speculative. Ready when you are, Haley announced as monitoring equipment hummed to operational capacity. Containment fields active, emergency shutdown protocols standing by. Naruto moved to the designated testing area, a reinforced platform surrounded by energy stabilization equipment and monitoring sensors. The other rangers positioned themselves at safe distance while maintaining visual contact. Beginning initial nature energy gathering, he announced, settling into meditative posture with hands forming the specialized seal. Minimal integration for baseline assessment. Quote, the familiar sensation of nature energy flowing into his chakra network provided momentary comfort, connection to natural forces transcending dimensional boundaries despite subtle differences in this world's energy patterns. The characteristic physical manifestation began gradually, pigmentation appearing around his eyes, pupils transforming to horizontal bars resembling toad eyes. Subtle changes to facial structure indicating successful energy integration. Energy patterns stabilizing, Haley reported, monitoring displays showing harmonic convergence rather than disruptive interference. Proceed to partial Sage mode activation. Naruto increased nature energy flow carefully, maintaining precise balance with his internal chakra. The transformation progressed smoothly, golden energy beginning to manifest around his form as Sage mode approached operational level. So far, the interdimensional differences appeared manageable rather than problematic. Proceeding to full Sage mode, he announced, completing the transformation with practiced precision. The command center's lighting flickered momentarily as nature energy concentrated around him. Golden aura stabilizing as the transformation completed successfully. Monitoring equipment registered the power spike but showed no warning indicators, successful implementation within expected parameters. Remarkable, Tommy observed, scientific curiosity temporarily overshadowing practical concerns. The energy signature shows perfect harmonic integration with planetary biospheres despite dimensional discrepancy. Suggests nature energy operates on universal principles transcending dimensional boundaries, Haley theorized, adjusting monitoring parameters to capture additional data. The foundational energy patterns remain consistent despite localized environmental variations. How does it feel compared to your world? Kira asked, focusing on experiential rather than technical aspects. Naruto considered the question carefully, cataloging subtle differences in sensation and response. Similar foundation but different flavor. Like drinking water from different mountain springs. Same basic substance but distinct mineral compositions affecting the experience. Proceeding to Phase 2, Tommy directed after reviewing initial data. Ranger transformation while maintaining Sage mode. Containment fields at maximum. Quote, this represented the true experimental variable, how the Shadow Dragon gem would interact with nature energy during morphing sequence. Theoretical models suggested complementary integration. But dimensional energies often behaved unpredictably during state transitions. Naruto raised his morpher, maintaining perfect Sage mode concentration despite the additional focus requirement. Dino Thunder. Power up. The transformation began normally, morphing energy surrounding his form as the Shadow Dragon armor materialized through established sequence. Then nothing unexpected occurred as Sage mode's nature energy encountered the dimensional properties of the Dragon Gem. Rather than conflicting or merely coexisting, the energies began resonating at fundamental frequency, amplifying each other through harmonic convergence. Golden Sage energy intertwined with purple-black dimensional power, creating entirely new energy signature that monitoring equipment struggled to categorize. Energy levels exceeding predicted parameters, Haley reported, concern evident as displays registered exponential power increase. Containment fields at 83% capacity and climbing. The transformation completed with spectacular visual manifestation, Shadow Dragon armor now infused with golden energy that flowed through its structure like luminescent circulatory system. The standard helmet had acquired Sage markings around its visual sensors, and the entire form seemed to exist partially between dimensional planes, edges blurring with reality distortion effects. Sage Dragon mode activated, Naruto announced, voice carrying harmonic overtones as dual energy systems synchronized. The power flowing through him exceeded anything he'd experienced since the war, SAG. E-mode and dragon energy multiplying rather than merely combining. Power readings are off the charts, Ethan reported, monitoring secondary systems as Haley focused on containment protocols. He's putting out more energy than all 5 Rangers combined at maximum output. How's your control? Tommy asked, professional assessment prioritizing practical considerations over scientific fascination. Naruto performed internal diagnostic, carefully testing response patterns and feedback loops between energy systems. Stable but intense, like trying to direct a waterfall rather than a stream. He demonstrated by generating a Rasengan in his palm, the normally basketball-sized energy sphere now compressed to softball dimensions but radiating power that caused nearby monitoring equipment to short-circuit despite protective shielding. Containment fields at 92% capacity. Haley warned. Power curve still increasing. I'll deactivate. Naruto decided immediately, prioritizing facility safety over experimental continuation. Discontinuing Sage Dragon mode. The deactivation process proved more challenging than anticipated. The resonance between energy systems had created self-sustaining feedback loop that resisted conventional shutdown procedures. Naruto focused his considerable mental discipline on separating the intertwined energies, gradually disentangling nature energy from dimensional power. After 30 seconds of concentrated effort, the transformation reversed, armor dissolving as Sage mode deactivated simultaneously. The process left Naruto momentarily disoriented, unaccustomed sensory aftereffects lingering as energy systems returned to baseline configuration. You okay? Kira asked, approaching cautiously as monitoring equipment confirmed power levels had normalized. Fine, Naruto assured her. Though residual dimensional vertigo manifested as slight physical unsteadiness. Just recalibrating. She offered supportive arm without comment, practical as assistance without making him feel diminished by temporary weakness. The gesture reflected growing trust beyond formal team dynamics, personal connection rather than merely professional cooperation. The energy integration was remarkable. Tommy observed once recovery seemed complete. But the control issues make tactical implementation problematic until we develop better stabilization protocols. Agreed. Naruto nodded. Professional assessment overriding fascination with the power potential. The exponential amplification creates impressive offensive capability but with proportional precision reduction. Unacceptable risk profile for standard combat operations. Could be situational last resort option, Connor suggested, tactical mind identifying potential application despite limitations. When raw power outweighs precision requirements. Possibly, Tommy acknowledged, but requires extensive additional testing under controlled conditions before field implementation consideration. Further discussion of experimental results was interrupted by the command center's alert system, proximity warnings indicating unauthorized approach to the mountain facility's hidden entrance. Someone's snooping around upstairs, Haley reported. Security cameras displaying familiar blonde figure moving systematically around Tommy's property with professional-grade camera equipment. Looks like Cassidy's investigative journalism has found a new target. Again, Ethan sighed, though his expression suggested resigned familiarity rather than genuine surprise. What triggered her interest this time? Probably the energy spike, Tommy surmised, checking external sensor readings. Even with containment fields, the Sage Dragon experiment generated detectable energy signatures at surface level. Nothing identifiable as Ranger activity to conventional equipment, but enough to trigger Cassidy's mysterious phenomenon, radar. She's persistent, Naruto observed, studying the reporter's methodical search pattern with professional assessment, and surprisingly systematic for civilian investigation. Don't underestimate Cassidy Cornell, Kira warned, though her tone suggested grudging respect rather than genuine concern. She's come closer to uncovering Ranger identities than any of Mesogog's elaborate schemes. What she lacks in monster-creating technology, she makes up for in sheer bulldog determination. I'll handle this, Tommy decided, deactivating sensitive equipment as precautionary measure. The rest of you continue power integration analysis while I convince R.M. Vicious journalist that unusual energy readings resulted from harmless geological survey equipment. As Tommy departed to manage the security situation, Haley directed attention to data analysis from the Sage Dragon experiment. The team worked methodically through technical evaluations, identifying both promising applications and concerning limitations of the combined energy states. Naruto Part ICIPATED in the analysis while maintaining situational awareness of Tommy's interaction with Cassidy via security monitors. The reporter's skepticism toward Tommy's explanations was evident even with the audio feed, her body language and expression clearly communicating professional disbelief despite verbal acquiescence. She doesn't believe him, Naruto noted as the interaction concluded with Cassidy reluctantly departing the property. She never does, Ethan confirmed without particular concern. But proving her suspicions is another matter entirely. We've developed pretty effective counter-measures against conventional investigation methods. Her focus seems unusually intense, Naruto observed, professional instinct identifying behavioral patterns beyond normal journalistic curiosity. Personal rather than merely professional motivation. Cassidy wants to be the next big investigative journalist, Kira explained. Uncovering the Power Rangers' identities would be her ticket to national networks instead of local news. Plus there's the whole Truth Crusader identity she's constructed for herself. She's not entirely wrong, Connor added unexpectedly, drawing surprised looks from his teammates. I mean, people probably should know about the weird dinosaur mutant trying to turn them all into extinct lizard chow. The whole keep the public ignorant for their own protection thing has always seemed a bit convenient. There's wisdom in both transparency and discretion, Naruto responded, finding philosophical middle ground in the unexpected debate. In my world, hidden villages operate with necessary secrecy while maintaining civilian oversight through administrative governance. Balance between operational security and public accountability, Tommy summarized as he rejoined the group. A challenge every protective organization faces, regardless of dimensional origin. The discussion continued throughout morning training, philosophical considerations weaving through practical combat drills as the team explored integration points between shinobi techniques and ranger operations. Naruto found himself increasingly comfortable sharing perspectives from his RLD, conceptual exchange, improving both tactical coordination and personal connection with these dimensional counterparts to his Konoha comrades. Training concluded by mid-afternoon, the team dispersing to maintain civilian cover activities while monitoring systems continued analyzing experimental data. Tommy remained at the command center with Haley, their scientific partnership focused on developing improved stabilization protocols for future testing. Any plans for the afternoon? Kira asked as they ascended from the underground facility toward Tommy's house. Her casual tone belied the deliberate nature of the question, genuine interest rather than mere conversational filler. Nothing specific, Naruto answered truthfully. Off-duty periods remained challenging despite 3 weeks of dimensional adaptation, unfilled time inevitably turning thoughts toward home and absence. Kira studied him with perceptive attention, seeming to recognize the unspoken struggle beneath his neutral response. Want to get out of Ninja Scientist headquarters for a while? I was heading to Riverside Cave to practice some new material. The acoustics are amazing, and it's completely private. The Invita Chion offered welcome distraction without demanding social performance, companionship without expectation. Naruto found himself accepting before conscious deliberation completed. I'd like that. Atu. MN afternoon painted Reefside's landscape with spectacular color as they traveled to Kira's practice location. The motorcycle she piloted navigated winding forest roads with practiced precision, Naruto riding passenger with automatic balance adjustment despite unfamiliarity with the transportation method. Wind rushing past created meditative rhythm, momentarily suspending displacement concerns in simple sensory experience. Riverside Cave proved aptly named, a natural limestone formation following the contours of a spring-fed stream that eventually joined Reefside's main waterway. Smooth stone walls curved in acoustically perfect formations, nature creating what architectural design would struggle to replicate. Found this place during early ranger days, Kira explained as they settled in. A naturally formed chamber where water-polished stone created comfortable seating around a small sandy area. Needed somewhere to scream without destroying buildings or alerting Mesogog to my location. Turns out it's perfect for actual music too. She unpacked her acoustic guitar with practiced care, the instrument clearly valued beyond mere material possession. Sometimes I come here just to think. Something about the cave makes problems seem more manageable, you know. Naruto nodded, understanding immediately. In Konoha, I had a spot on the Hokage monument, above the carved faces, where the forest meets the mountain. You could see the entire village but remain unseen yourself. Your thinking spot, Kira observed with intuitive understanding. Everyone needs one, somewhere between public and private, where you can sort things out without having to be anyone in particular. The insight demonstrated surprising perception, recognizing the unique pressure of operating within dual identities without requiring elaborate explanation. Whether shinobi or ranger, the challenge of maintaining public persona while processing private complexity created universal experience transcending dimensional differences. Exactly, Naruto confirmed, settling comfortably against smooth stone as Kira began tuning her instrument. Though visiting required chakra walking up vertical cliff face. Slightly less accessible than your cave. Show off ninja, she teased gently, fingers moving across guitar strings with practiced precision. Some of us have to use actual roads like normal humans. Our humor invited reciprocal lightness rather than maintained formality. Naruto found himself responding with decreasing reservation, the cave's atmosphere encouraging gradual relaxation of habitual guardedness. What are you working on? He asked as preliminary tuning transitioned to melodic exploration. Something new, Kira answered, slight vulnerability beneath professional confidence. Still figuring out if it works or not. Without further preamble, she began playing, intricate finger-picking pattern establishing rhythmic foundation as melody emerged through overlapping harmonic progressions. The composition demonstrated sophisticated musicality beyond what her casual performance style might suggest, complex emotional narrative conveyed through instrumental voice rather than merely pleasant sound arrangement. When vocals joined instrumental foundation, lyrics revealed equally thoughtful craftsmanship, poetic imagery exploring dislocation and adaptation without descending into self-indulgent melancholy. The parallel to Naruto's current circumstances seemed coincidental rather than deliberate, yet resonated with surprising precision. Between worlds and wondering, which reflection shows my face? Stranger in familiar skin, traveler without a place. The song continued for several minutes, musical structure evolving through emotional progression rather than merely repeating established patterns. When final notes faded into cave acoustics, natural reverberation extended the moment beyond physical performance. That was, Naruto began, searching for appropriate response to unexpected emotional impact. Too depressing, Hira suggested self-critically, misinterpreting his hesitation. I've been trying to balance authentic emotion with accessible structure, but many times it tilts too far toward the emo side. Beautiful, he corrected definitively. And truthful in ways I wasn't expecting. She studied him with careful attention, recognizing the genuine response beneath simple compliment. It started as something completely different, but after you arrived, I kept thinking about what it must be like. Being cut off from everything and everyone you know. Trying to function in a world where nothing quite fits right. The observation contained no pity, merely empathetic imagination translating emotional concept into artistic expression. Naruto found himself deeply appreciating both the consideration and its creative manifestation. You captured it perfectly, he acknowledged quietly. Especially the part about reflections, seeing yourself through you. Familiar context and questioning what's actually changed. Hira nodded, fingers absently tracing patterns on her guitar as conversation deepened beyond casual exchange. Music helps me process things I can't quite articulate otherwise. Putting complicated emotions into structured form makes them more manageable somehow. Like battle strategy, Naruto observed, recognizing conceptual parallel despite different implementation. Converting chaotic situation into organized response framework. Exactly. Hira's expression brightened at the unexpected connection. That's why I started bringing my guitar to the cave after becoming a ranger. All the fear and uncertainty and impossible situations needed somewhere to go besides just freaking out or pretending everything was normal. Emotional processing is tactical necessity rather than luxury, Naruto summarized, recognizing wisdom in her approach. Shinobi training emphasized psychological management alongside physical technique, uncross. SSED emotion creating vulnerability as surely as physical injury. I never thought of it in military terms, but yeah, she agreed. Can't exactly talk to a therapist about monster battles and morphing sequences. In Konoha, we have specialized psychological support divisions, Naruto explained, recalling institutional structures designed to maintain shinobi mental health. Practitioners with security clearance to address combat-related trauma without compromising operational security. That actually sounds amazing, Hira replied with genuine enthusiasm. The Rangers could definitely use something like that. We mostly just pretend everything's fine and occasionally blow things up in spectacular fashion when it gets too overwhelming. Effective short-term coping mechanism, Naruto acknowledged with hint of answering humor. Less optimal for sustained operational capacity. Conversation continued with surprising depth, musical interludes providing natural transitions between topics. Hira shared additional compositions, some directly addressing Ranger experiences through metaphorical language, others exploring universal themes transcending her unusual circumstances. Each reveal thoughtful perspective beyond her age or apparent experience level. Your turn, she announced eventually, setting her guitar aside after particularly introspective piece. You've heard my emotional processing. How do you handle everything in your world? The question's directness caught Naruto momentarily off guard. His standard response would typically redirect toward tactical considerations rather than personal disclosure. Professional habit maintaining separation between operational capability and emotional experience. Yet something about this cave, this moment, and this particular person invited uncharacteristic openness. Perhaps dimensional displacement itself provided strange freedom, temporary context creating space for expression normally constrained by established patterns. Not very effectively, historically speaking, he admitted with unexpected candor. For many years, I processed everything through training and mission objectives, channeling emotional energy into physical action rather than actual understanding. The classic, punch feelings into submission, approach, Kira observed with gentle insight rather than judgment. Seems popular with the warrior types across dimensions. Exactly, Naruto acknowledged, appreciating her perceptive framing. Effective for immediate functionality but creates long-term complications. After the war, I started recognizing the limitations in that approach. What changed? She asked, genuine interest evident in her focused attention. Naruto considered the question carefully, identifying pivotal realizations that had shifted his perspective following Kagaya's defeat and the war's conclusion. Understanding that strength without wisdom becomes merely destructive potential, he explained thoughtfully. That protecting people requires more than combat capability. It demands emotional intelligence to recognize what actually needs protection beyond physical safety. The difference between saving lives and preserving what makes those lives worth living. Kira suggested, demonstrating surprising philosophical depth beneath casual exterior. Precisely. The accuracy of her interpretation reinforced growing appreciation for her perceptive intelligence. In practical terms, it meant allowing myself to acknowledge emotions rather than simply channeling them into action, recognizing that feelings provide valuable information rather than merely creating vulnerability. So how do you actually process things? She pressed gently, returning to her original question with characteristic persistence. Naruto found himself answering with unexpected specificity rather than philosophical generality. I talk to Kurama sometimes, the Nine Tails. Our relationship evolved from adversarial to cooperative over years. He provides perspective unconstrained by human social conventions. You have internal conversations with a 1,000-year-old chakra fox about your feelings. Kira summarized with evident fascination rather than disbelief. That's both terrifying and incredibly cool. It's complicated, Naruto acknowledged, slight smile acknowledging the unusual nature of his coping mechanism. But effective in its way. Kurama's perspective spans centuries rather than decades. He contextualizes current challenges against historical patterns I couldn't possibly comprehend independently. Is he aware of what's happening now? Your dimensional displacement. The question reflected genuine curiosity about his internal experience rather than mere factual clarification. Yes, though our connection feels somewhat attenuated in this dimension. Naruto explained, rarely discussed aspect of his current circumstances finally finding voice. He's present but muted somehow. Like speaking across greater distance than usual. That must be difficult, Kira observed with simple compassion unmarred by excessive sympathy. Losing not just external connections but internal ones as well. The observation's accuracy triggered unexpected emotional response, subtle throat tightening and momentary vision blurring that Naruto controlled through practiced discipline. Yet the experience itself, being genuinely seen and understood, provided unexpected relief rather than vulnerability. It is, he acknowledged simply, neither minimizing nor dramatizing the reality. But adaptation continues, and temporary. Connections here provide meaningful support during the transition. The statement contained more personal disclosure than intended, implicit acknowledgement of her specific importance in his adaptation process. Kira seemed to recognize the significance, her expression softening with recognition rather than embarrassment. Good, she replied with matching simplicity. That's what teammates are for. The moment hung between them, neither awkward nor pressured, merely significant in its quiet authenticity. Then Kira reached for her guitar again, transitioning naturally back to musical expression. I've been working on something that might help, she explained, fingers finding new melodic pattern. Music therapy experiment, if you're willing to try. I'm not much of a musician, Naruto demurred, unsure what participation might entail. No performance required, she assured him with slight smile. Just listening and letting your mind process through sound rather than words. Music bypass cognitive filters sometimes, reaches emotional centers directly without intellectual interference. The explanation sounded remarkably similar to certain meditation techniques used in chakra allig. And meant, creating mental state where energy flowed naturally without conscious restriction. Naruto nodded agreement, settling into comfortable position as Kira began playing. The composition differed significantly from earlier pieces, instrumental rather than lyrical, structured around cyclical patterns that evolved through subtle variations rather than dramatic changes. The effect created meditative foundations similar to certain chakra exercises, inviting mental relaxation without demanding specific emotional response. Naruto found himself responding automatically, breathing synchronizing with musical rhythm as cognitive processes gradually quieted. The experience resembled nature energy gathering without actual chakra manipulation, mental stillness allowing natural flow without directed purpose. Minutes passed in musical meditation, cave acoustics enhancing the immersive quality of sound surrounding them. When the final notes eventually faded, Naruto remained momentarily motionless, experiencing unfamiliar mental clarity that transcended both tactical assessment and emotional processing. That was, he began, searching for adequate description. Different, Kira suggested, setting her guitar aside with careful movements. Remarkable, he corrected, like sage mode for emotions rather than chakra. Creating balanced flow without forced direction. Her smile suggested pleased satisfaction with the experiment's effectiveness. That's exactly what I was trying for. Emotional harmonization without dictating specific response patterns. You're very good at this, Naruto observed. Professional assessment rather than casual compliment. The technical skill is evident, but the intuitive understanding of psychological response patterns demonstrates exceptional talent. Thanks, she acknowledged. Slight coloration suggesting genuine appreciation of his specific praise rather than generic encouragement. Most people just say they like my songs without really explaining why they work. Professional habit, Naruto explained with hint of self-deprecation. Shinobi training emphasizes precise analysis over general impressions. I like it, Kira assured him. Specific feedback is actually useful. Unlike vague, "You rock," comments that don't help improve anything. Further conversation was interrupted by simultaneous alert signals from both their communicators, the distinctive tone indicating non-emergency information update rather than active crisis situation. "Haley to Rangers," came the technical advisor's voice as they activated their devices. Preliminar. Y analysis of the cave system near Johnson Creek has revealed something you should probably see. Not urgent, but definitely interesting. We're actually nearby, Kira responded, gathering her equipment with practiced efficiency. Riverside Cave is just across the watershed from Johnson Creek. What are we looking for? Tommy found unusual markings approximately half-mile into the northern tunnel system, Haley explained. Sending coordinates to your communicators now. He says they appear ancient but contain imagery that seems relevant to our current situation. The cryptic description immediately captured Naruto's attention. Operational instinct recognizing potential intelligence development despite casual delivery. We'll investigate immediately. As they departed the acoustic MBER toward the cave system's northern extension, Naruto found himself appreciating the unexpected therapeutic benefit of their music session. Mental clarity improved tactical function, emotional prose. SSING serving practical purpose beyond mere psychological comfort. Perhaps interdimensional adaptation required methodologies beyond standard shinobi protocols after all. The northern tunnel system presented more challenging navigation than Riverside Cave's accessible chambers, narrow passages occasionally requiring sideways movement through limestone restrictions, water-slick surfaces demanding careful footing, and gradually decreasing ceiling height necessitating occasional ducking or crawling. Kira navigated with practiced familiarity, having apparently explored portions of the system during previous visits. Dr. O must have been doing geological surveys, she explained as they followed communicator guidance through increasingly complex passage networks. He's been mapping these cave systems for months. Something about mineral deposits potentially containing fossilized dinosaur material. Paleontological obsession with practical application, Naruto observed, ducking beneath particularly low stalactite formation. Impressive dedication to professional interests despite ranger responsibilities. That's drive. Oh, for you, Kira agreed with affectionate respect. Sometimes I think he'd be happier just digging up dinosaur bones if the whole, saving the world repeatedly, thing didn't keep interrupting. Their path eventually opened into larger chamber where Tommy awaited, Specie. Alized lighting equipment illuminating previously hidden section of cave wall. His expression suggested controlled scientific excitement beneath professional composure. "Glad you could make it," he greeted as they approached. "Especially you, Naruto. I think these might have personal relevance." He directed their attention to the illuminated wall section, where ancient markings covered approximately 10 square meters of limestone surface. The images had been carved with primitive tools but demonstrated sophisticated artistic representation, geometric precision suggesting ritualistic significance rather than merely decorative purpose. Naruto studied the markings with growing amazement, professional assessment temporarily overshadowed by personal recognition. The central image depicted unstockable representation of the nine-tailed fox alongside reptilian figure resembling dragon or dinosaur, the two entities positioned in balanced opposition across dimensional boundary represented by vertical line. "That's," he began, momentarily speechless at the implications. "The nine tails," Tommy confirmed, scientific precision matching Naruto's stunned recognition. "Unless I'm mistaken, about the number of tails and general vulpine appearance." "You're not mistaken," Naruto confirmed, examining additional details with increasing fascination. "And the opposing figure resembles the Dao dragon from my Morpher manifestation sequence." "Exactly," Tommy agreed, directing attention to surrounding imagery. "But it's the contextual elements that make this truly remarkable." The center figures were surrounded by symbolic representations of dimensional transference, spiraling vortices, overlapping reality planes, and energy conduits connecting disparate realms. Human figures appear on both sides of the dimensional boundary, some wielding energy resembling chakra while others channeled power through devices resembling morphers. "This can't be coincidence," Kira observed, stating the obvious conclusion with appropriate amazement. "These carvings show connections between our worlds going back. How old are these, Drive?" "Oh, preliminary analysis suggests approximately 12,000 years, Tommy answered. Professional detachment barely containing evident excitement. "Carbon dating will provide more precise timeline, but the mineralization patterns indicate pre-Clovis period at minimum." 12,000 years, Naruto repeated, implications expanding exponentially. "Long before modern shinobi civilization developed in my world. And millennia before dinosaur extinction in ours," Tommy added significantly, suggesting these connections predate both our current civilizational frameworks. Further examination revealed additional elements with unmistakable significance. Human figures in armor resembling ranger configurations, others demonstrating chakra manipulation techniques, and central figure that appeared to bridge dimensional boundary while manipulating both energy systems simultaneously. "A prophecy," Kira suggested, tracing carved sequence that appeared to show narrative progression rather than static representation. "Or historical record of previous dimensional crossover." "Possibly both," Tommy theorized, scientific caution tempered by evident fascination. Many ancient cultures didn't distinguish between historical documentation and predictive prophecy, past patterns projected forward as cyclical recurrence rather than linear progression. Naruto focused on specific sections showing 9 distinct tailed beasts arranged in circular formation around central figure wielding both chakra and dimensional energy. The representation couldn't be coincidental, specific arrangement matching too precisely with historical events from his world to represent mere artistic imagination. "Someone from my dimension has definitely been here before," he concluded with certainty bordering on professional conviction. "These details are too accurate to represent independent development." The Biju arrangement specifically matches historical configuration during the Fourth War's final phase. "Which means the dimensional boundary between our worlds has been crossed previously," Tommy extrapolated, following logical progression with scientific precision. "And documented by witnesses on this side." "But why?" Kira questioned, practical consideration cutting through academic fascination. What purpose would dimensional crossing serve? And why document it in hidden cave system rather than more accessible location? The question focused their collective attention on central narrative sequence, series of images depicting catastrophic event threatening both dimensional planes simultaneously, with central bridge figure apparently stabilizing connection rather than merely traversing it. Interdimensional threat mitigation, Tommy suggested, professional experience with multidimensional entities informing his interpretation. Some entity or force threatening both realities simultaneously, requiring coordinated response across dimensional boundaries. Like the shadow dragon mythology Haley discovered, Kira connected, recalling previous research findings. A guardian entity existing partially in multiple dimensions, responding when threats arise that single worlds can't contain alone. And selecting champions with specific qualities, Naruto added, recalling knowledge that had flowed directly into his consciousness when the gem first bonded with him. Unbreakable will, selfless protection instinct, and capacity to harness Hado energies without succumbing to darkness. The three studied the ancient carvings with renewed perspective, historical documentation transforming into potential operational intelligence as implications clarified. If previous dimensional crossings had occurred for specific protective purpose rather than random accident, Naruto's current displacement might represent intentional response to RGING threat rather than mere misfortune. We need to document everything and bring this data back for comprehensive analysis, Tommy decided, professional scientist temporarily overshadowing Ranger tactician. These carvings may contain critical information about both the nature of dimensional boundaries and potential threat profiles requiring interdimensional response. As they began systematic documentation process, Naruto continued studying specific sections with personal rather than merely professional interest. One particular sequence captured his attention, final carving showing diamonds. Ional bridge figure returning to original realm after apparent threat resolution, accompanied by symbolic representation of knowledge transfer rather than merely physical return. The implication IDED unexpected comfort, suggesting that interdimensional guardians historically completed their protective missions before returning home, rather than remaining permanently displaced. If previous Pions had successfully returned to their original dimensions, practical pathway must exist beyond merely theoretical possibility. While assisting documentation efforts, Naruto surreptitiously activated specialized sensory technique, extending chakra perception beyond visual spectrum to detect potential energy residues within the limestone itself. Ancient chakra signatures often remained detectable to specialized perception techniques long after physical evidence disappeared to conventional observation. The results exceeded expectations. Faint but unmistakable chakra residue permeated the entire chamber, concentrated particularly around the central carvings. The energy pattern contained familiar resonance despite extreme age, signature similar to specific chakra types he'd encountered during the Fourth War. Six Paths Chakra, he whispered, recognition triggering cascading implications. The specialized energy associated with Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the Sage of Six Paths himself, had apparent been present in this very chamber millennia ago. Did you say something? Kira asked, noticing his momentary distraction. Naruto hesitated briefly before sharing his discovery. There's residual chakra embedded in the stone itself. Very ancient but with distinctive signature I recognize from my world, associated with foundational chakra mythology and primordial dimensional boundaries. Tommy immediately adjusted scanning equipment to capture any detectable energy patterns, professional excitement temporarily overshadowing cautious scientific methodology. If energy residue from your diamond's ion has remained stable for thousands of years in this environment, it suggests fundamental compatibility between our realities despite apparent differences. Or deliberate stabilization implemented by whoever created these carvings. Naruto suggested, shinobi paranoia offering alternative interpretation. Maintained through specialized sealing techniques similar to certain forbidden jutsu from my world. The possibility shifted contextual understanding from historical documentation toward potential active mechanism, the chamber itself perhaps serving function beyond mere record keeping. If ancient dimensional travelers had established connection points between realities, those pathways might remain accessible under specific conditions rather than representing merely historical curiosity. Either possibility warrants comprehensive investigation, Tommy concluded, completing initial documentation sequence. Let's get this data back to the command center for proper analysis. If there's active dimensional connectivity in these cave systems, we need to understand its mechanics and potential applications. As they prepared to depart, Naruto performed final sensory sweep, standard sec. Urity protocol before abandoning potentially significant location. The technique revealed something unexpected, faint but distinct chakra signature at chamber's outer perimeter, partially concealed I'm stalactite formation but unmistakably recent rather than ancient. Someone else had visited this chamber within the past week, someone from his dimension. Concealing his discovery through practiced shinobi discipline, Naruto maintained casual demeanor while cataloging tactical implications. The signature wasn't immediately recognizable as specific individual, but its mere presence confirmed Cr. Identical intelligence. He wasn't the only dimensional traveler currently present in this reality. The revelation transformed operational parameters from personal displacement situation to potential bro. Aider incursion scenario, significantly more complex than previously assessed. Whether the unknown visitor represented ally, enemy, or neutral party remained undetermined, but their presence demanded IM. Mediate investigative priority regardless of classification. As they navigated back through cave system toward surface access, Naruto maintained heightened situational awareness while processing strategic implications. If multiple entities had crossed dimensional boundaries, coordinated purpose seemed more likely than random accident, suggesting intentional mission rather than arbitrary displacement. The ancient carvings, recent visitor, and his own selection by the Shadow Dragon gem suggested interconnected elements of larger operational framework rather than isolated coincidences. Whether Hat framework represented beneficial protective system or emerging threat remained undetermined, but its existence seemed increasingly difficult to dismiss as mere happenstance. You've gone all quiet and ninja-focused, Kira observed as they emerged from cave entrance into late afternoon sunlight. Find something else back there you're not sharing. Her perceptiveness continued to impress, detect Ting's subtle behavioral shifts that most observers would overlook entirely. Naruto considered appropriate response, balancing operational security against team information requirements. Possibly, he acknowledged, professional assessment prioritizing team preparedness over protocol rigidity. I detected recent energy signature suggesting another visitor from my dimension has been in that chamber. Within past week, based on degradation patterns, Tommy immediately grasped strategic implications, tactical mind shifting to security considerations. Ally or hostile? Undetermined, Naruto answered honestly. The signature wasn't immediately recognizable as specific individual, merely identifiable as chakra-based rather than this dimension's energy patterns. So someone else came through besides you, Kira summarized. Practical focus cutting through technical details. And found the same ancient cave paintings connecting our worlds. That can't be coincidence. Agreed, Tommy nodded, already activating secure communication channel to command center. Haley, we're bringing in critical data requiring immediate analysis. Also need full spectrum scanning for anomalous energy signature. Res matching Naruto's baseline patterns but with different individual markers. Already detected something interesting, Haley responded, voice carrying controlled urgency rather than alarm. Saddle. Light monitoring picked up brief energy fluctuation resembling the original dimensional tear, though significantly smaller scale. Approximately 20 miles northeast of your position, near abandoned mining complex in the mountains. The information confirmed Naruto's suspicion, active dimensional breach rather than merely residual evidence. Recent timeframe, 3 hours ago, Haley specified. Too brief for precise triangulation. But definitely same energy pattern as your arrival event. Someone or something else came through. Tommy made immediate tactical decision. Change of plans. We, investigate the mining complex directly rather than returning to base. Send coordinates and alert Connor and Ethan to meet us there. Full Ranger protocol, potential hostile encounter. As they ed toward Kira's motorcycle for rapid deployment, Naruto found himself experiencing complex emotional response beneath professional focus. The possibility of encountering someone from his world, even potential enemy, created unexpected anticipation alongside tactical concern. After 3 weeks of dimensional isolation, connection to home existed beyond mere memory or eventual objective. Whether friend or foe awaited, the dimensional boundary had proven permeable in both directions. Concrete evidence that return passage remained possible rather than merely theoretical. Provided, of course, that whatever had followed him across dimensions allowed such opportunity rather than eliminating it entirely. Ready for this? Kira asked as they mounted the motorcycle, question addressing both tactical preparation and emotional readiness. Yes, Naruto answered simply, determination replacing uncertainty as operational parameters clarified. Whatever awaited in the abandoned mines, fundamental shinobi directive remained unchanged. Assess, adapt, overcome. The Shadow Dragon Ranger would face this new development as he had countered every previous challenge, with strategic precision, tactical flexibility, and unwavering commitment to protection across dimensional boundaries. After all, that's what Guardians did, regardless of which world they called home. Chapter 3 End. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.